You're the first person I've really spoken to about this type of stuff. I was in hospital after the fight. I'm lying there, I got my mask on, thinking this is so bad. Get me the morphine, get me the morphine. I've got my family around me, some of them are crying. I can hear everything that's going on. And then I hear the doctor say from the other room, we have to operate on him now, otherwise he's gonna die.
Chris, you haven't really spoken since that 12th round with Conor. How do you rate your own performance?
I was technically sound for the first 7 rounds, but once the cut came, I was experiencing all the things that had been restricting me leading up to the fight. And I can hear my trainer, gotta use the jab, Chris, use your feet. I looked at him, I said, I'm sorry, it's too late. Because I always knew there would be fights like this where you don't have anything left, or you want to give up, or you're hurt, but you have to fight through the demons, the issues, the restrictions. Because I wasn't willing to go the rest of my life knowing that I didn't give it my all. That lives with you forever. So the technicality of the sport was out the window. We are going to war.
Was Conor faster than you were expecting?
Yep.
Was he stronger than you were expecting?
Yep. But it was about who wants it more. My old man's there. I've got to show him I'm capable of great things. You know, we have been estranged for years.
But what caused that relationship to strain?
I sent him a letter and that broke him. You know, I get emotional thinking about this.
What did that letter say? This has always blown my mind a little bit. 53% of you that listen to this show regularly haven't yet subscribed to the show. So could I ask you for a favor before we start? If you like the show and you like what we do here and you want to support us, the free, simple way that you can do just that is by hitting the subscribe button. And my commitment to you is if you do that, then I'll do everything in my power, me and my team, to make sure that this show is better for you every single week. We'll listen to your feedback, we'll find the guests that you want me to speak to, and we'll continue to do what we do. Thank you so much. Chris, you haven't really spoken since the fight, especially not in long form. So I guess the best place to start is just by asking you how you're feeling. That was pretty fucking crazy.
Fucking crazy is pretty accurate. Yeah, it was a fight that I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't expecting to be involved in. I genuinely thought that I was going to go in there, I was going to have my way with this kid, blow him out of the water, you know, watch him quit, watch him crumble under the pressure. That's really what I thought was going to happen. And thank God that I was wrong. Because if that had happened, it would not be a fight that is now going to be remembered for ever. This is what I'm being told. This is what I'm hearing. This is what I'm seeing. This is the best fight I ever saw. This is the best event I ever saw. This was amazing. For a fight to reach that level of love and respect, both fighters have to go through the fire. Both fighters have to do things that may seem superhuman, may seem like impossible. They have to go through that. They have to be true. And they cannot give up. And that's what we both showed on that night. 2 men who were willing to die in that ring. That's what boxing is really about. And it's so rare to see these days, you know. We just saw over the weekend some of the best fighters on the planet right now. Devin Haney, Canelo, Ryan Garcia. You know, their fights were underwhelming, to say the least.
Boring.
In those 3 fights, the total amount of punches landed was less than just the fight with me and Conor. So the fight with me and Conor, I think we landed maybe 1,500 punches. In their 3 fights in total, only 1,400 landed, which is a pretty incredible statistic. And it just shows you how much that fight meant to both of us. You know, it showed the pressure and the grit and the determination and the stakes. So I'm blessed to be a part of such a historic fight, a historic event, and I'm very grateful that the fans loved it so much. Everything I've heard about it so far has been amazing. And I went out into the streets for the first time yesterday in Brixton, and to see the people's reactions for the first time, to really see it, um, you know, it really means a lot. I had a woman came up and she was crying. She had tears in her eyes, like, it's amazing what you did. You know, that fight superseded what boxing is, because it was, you know, even outside of what we did in that ring, the father and son dynamic, that was real. And that's something that, you know, the entire world can relate to and has to deal with their own problems with their families. So to see me and my father going through what we were going through, and then to come together to unite at a time when it meant the most, that's an amazing thing. And nobody thought it was going to happen. I didn't think it was going to happen. So seeing that, that's not boxing. That is that's love.
Going back to the top of that, you said that you were expecting to walk in there and blow Connor away. So does that mean that you, in hindsight, underestimated his ability, or was there something not quite right with you that night? Because I was watching, I was ringside, and you didn't look normal, especially in those opening rounds. You had the same dog in you that you've always had, but you didn't look normal.
You're very observant. There are a lot of things going on in my life that no one knows about and no one will ever know about. As a fighter, you have to do things that nobody else could imagine doing and no one else is willing to do. I did that to be able to get into the ring that night. You also have the navigation of weight loss, rehydration restrictions. These are all things that I was having to deal with on top of all the outside stuff. What you saw was maybe, yes, there was maybe certain aspects of me as an athlete that, weren't 100%. But the truth of it is, so many fighters go into fights with issues, whether it's injuries, whether it's illness, whether it's mental problems. We all have to fight through these things. That's a part of the sport, which is why I'm not going to sit here and tell you about all the things that I was dealing with, because it's my job. We are fighters. You have to fight through the demons. You have to fight through the issues. You have to fight through the restrictions. And that's what I did. I didn't give up.
Illness, injury, and mental problems
are just a few of the things that fighters.
Did you have any of these?
Again, I'm not going to go into what I was dealing with.
Was it? It's a personal issue you're dealing with.
Do
you know why I'm asking this question? I'm asking this question because, as a fight fan, as a fan of yours, I was watching you as the fight began, and I didn't think you were quite yourself. I've been to your fights. I've been to many other your fights. I've watched you in Manchester as well, ringside, and you didn't look the same. So now I have this big question mark in my head as to why you didn't look the same. And I'm like really determined to try and understand. I know that you weren't in great physical health, but you say there was other things going on in your life. What category were those things in? If you don't have to tell me what they are. You obviously don't have to say anything, but
no, it's something that a lot of fighters do. They will come out of a fight and they will say the things that were wrong with the camps and were wrong with their health or wrong with their personal lives, or I've never been that guy to make excuses. I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm not looking for a reason for people to say, oh, well, you know.
Well, you won, so it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. You know,
But even if I had lost,
yeah.
it's not in me to, oh, well, this is why I had to go through this and that. And people saw so much of what I had to deal with.
Yeah.
My father, the weight cut, the rehydration clause, getting fined $1 million for being 0.5 overweight, using the gloves that weren't in the contract, some guy trying to get into my changing room to check my hands, and ruffling the feathers of my team. They threw everything at me. They did everything they could to try and get me off of track, to distract me, to take my mind off of the task at hand. And I never let that happen. And I'm very, I'm proud of that. I'm proud that I didn't fall into the traps that were set. Every time they set a trap, I saw the trap, go around it, go forward. Oh, there's another trap. Round it, forward. Another trap, round it, forward. That is a part of being a warrior. It's not just getting in the ring and fighting. You have to be smart. You have to be cunning. You have to know your enemy. You have to understand the things that people are trying to do to take you out of your comfort zone, out of your preparation. You have to avoid, and you have to make sure that nothing gets into your head. Nothing affects what you're going to do on the night. And the crazy thing was, not only was I dealing with all these bullets flying at me from my enemies in Conor Benn, in Matchroom, in Eddie Hearn, in Nigel Benn. These are all enemies leading up to the fight. I had bullets coming from my family, my father. A couple of days before the biggest fight of my life, he's going into the media and saying I'm a disgrace. I'm already under a lot of stress, under a lot of pressure. And then I've got to hear this. It's like, Jesus, I mean, what, how much worse is it going to get? It was tough. It was really tough. But on the subject of my father, regardless of what he said about me and about the fight, he was there when it mattered the most. And that means everything. I didn't know he was going to come. He called me, he texted me the day before the fight, the night before the fight. He said, call me when you see this. So I saw the text and I thought, you know what? We're less than a day away from, this is the night before the biggest fight of my life. The last thing I can be doing is being on the phone listening to negativity, because that's all he had come with for the last 6-8 weeks. The fight's not going to happen. This fight shouldn't be happening. Weights are not right. He egged him. He's a disgrace. It's a circus. It's a sham. I will never be in my son's corner. This is all I'm hearing from him for 2 months. Don't do this fight, Chris. Son. This is all I'm hearing. So I'm sitting there, I'm reading this message, and he hasn't, I haven't spoken to him. And I'm thinking, I can't deal with this right now. Call him for what? So he can say not to take the fight? I got to rest. I got to focus. A couple of hours go by, maybe 9, 10 o'clock, it gets to that. And I'm like, you know what? I've been through so much shit in the last 2 months. What more could possibly be thrown at me? At the end of the day, he's my old man. He's texted me. I'm going to hear him out. So I called him. I was about to go to sleep. And I thought, you know what? I'll call him. As soon as he picked the phone up, there was a tone in his voice that I hadn't heard for years. It was a tone of happiness, lightness, joy. Hey, how you doing, son? What's going on? How you feeling? How am I feeling? When have you worried about how I've been feeling? You know, I'm good, Dad. Everything's cool. You know, just getting ready to go to sleep. Got a big day tomorrow. Yeah, I know, son. I know you got a big day tomorrow, and I want to be there for you. So I heard that, and I'm like, is this a dream? Is this this is Chris Eubank Sr. I'm speaking to? Who is this? Yeah, it's me, son. Let's do this. Let's do this together. Where are you? I said, I'm at my hotel. He said, all right, well, I'll come to your hotel. We'll speak. And yeah, let's do it. Okay. Okay, Dad. I ordered him an Uber. 20 minutes later, he was at my hotel. I got him a room. We went up to the room. We sat down. You know, he said, I was always going to come. I was always going to be there for you. And in my mind, I'm thinking, if I just gone to sleep, what happens? What would you still be here? Like, what? You know, we haven't had any communication, and I know, and I knew how hard it was for him to send me that text of, you know, call me when you see this, because he doesn't do that. You know, it's been years since he tried to have that contact with me. So I think if I just ignored it, then we wouldn't be sitting here today talking about this amazing event that had unfolded. Because make no mistake, him being there made it different. It made it something that will now go down in history. You know, movies are made about this type of stuff. If I go in there alone, it's just a fight, which would have been a great fight still. But to have that fantasy of a father and son coming together after going through so much, you know, my brother passing away, all the stuff in the media, all the friction, to see that be able to be kind of put to one side and to unite, to come together, to walk into that ring. It's an incredible thing. You know, I get emotional thinking about it, because it was so unexpected. You know, I had envisioned in my mind for the last 2 years me walking to that ring alone. I just, you know, it never crossed my mind that my old man would be behind me. I envisioned walking to the ring alone, being booed, and getting into that ring and fighting with anger in my heart. That's what I thought that fight was going to be. What it turned out to be was, I'm walking to the ring. My old man is behind me. He's with me. And, you know, for the first time in my whole career, I'm walking through a crowd and there's no booze. I'm used to walking up into these rings and I'm looking out and people are going, you're gonna get knocked out. Boo. And I feed off of that dark energy and I use it against my opponents. That's what I've been, been my life for my whole career, really. In this fight, I'm walking past people and I'm seeing tears in their eyes. I'm seeing grown men with tears in their eyes and smiles and, you know, go on, Chris, And it's like, I'm walking to the ring and my face is always cold because I'm about to get in the ring and hurt somebody and get hurt. But in my mind and my heart, I'm like, what's happening? What is this? This is I've never seen this before. I've never seen cheers, let alone people crying with joy. This is, this is going to be different. This fight is about to be something different. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm excited.
What did you discuss in that hotel room when he arrived in that Uber?
He said to me in that hotel room, "What do you think I want from you?" I thought about it for a long time, and I genuinely couldn't answer the question. We have been estranged for a long, long time.
Years.
Yeah, years. So how can I answer that? What do I want from you? Is what he said. I know that this man is not a man that can be bought. He's got too much pride. He's got too much morals. He's a man of God. That's all that's important to him. You can't buy him. So me knowing that, when he's saying, "What do you think I want from you?" I'm thinking, oh no. Has that changed? Has he changed? Is he about to, ask me for some crazy amount of money? I hope not. Because then that changes my view of who this man in front of me is. So I didn't even think about that. It's in my head, but I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to say it in the fear that he would be like, "Yeah, you gotta give me $1 million." That would have killed me.
Really?
Yeah. That would have been bad.
Why?
Because then I know that he's not there because he loves me and because he wants to see me win. He wants to support me. He wants to be my dad. If it's about money, then all of that is irrelevant.
Yeah.
So I was too scared to even mention money, because then that would mean that there's no coming back. If we were in a room together the night before the biggest fight of my life and you're just saying, "You got to pay me," that means for the rest of our lives now, our relationship will never ever be the same. So I was scared to say that, and I was scared at the question. I had to joke. I had to make a joke out of it because I was so confused and worried about what was about to happen. I said, "Well, you want a hug? I'll give you a hug." He said, "No, I want nothing. Absolutely nothing." And when he said that, uh, my heart, it was just an overwhelming feeling of joy. Okay, my dad is here because he wants to be my dad. That's huge. That's everything. That's what I haven't had for years and years and years. So if there was ever a time that I was going to kind of get some of that feeling and love back, this was the time I needed it. And he was there to do it. I'll never forget that. Him being there that night, for sure. It gave me those few extra percentages to put into that performance. People say, "You were finished by the 8th round. You had your legs were gone. How did you throw 300 punches in the last 2 rounds?" Well, I had to come outside of myself. It became spiritual. It wasn't about the physical. I was dehydrated. I was experiencing all the things that had been restricting me um, leading up to the fight. So it became not about the physical, it came about the spiritual. It became about just being true, just being the man I know I can be. I told you a story once about being on that treadmill and you've got that cramp in your foot, but you said you was going to do the 10 miles. So you've got a limp on that treadmill for as long as you have to complete the task. No one's around, no one's watching, but you keep your ass on that treadmill and you get through it. You get through the pain. That mentality is what was able to get me through those last 2-3 rounds. I never gave up in the gyms. When I was getting beaten up in sparring, I never quit. I would come back the next day. When I got the cramps, I kept going because I always knew there would be fights like this where you don't have anything left, or you want to give up, or you're hurt, or you're dehydrated, or you're injured, or you're cut. You know, you can't see anything out of your eye. You got a big cut across your eye. And you're going to ask yourself that question getting up off the stool in the ninth, in the 10th round. Should I give up? Should I take a knee? Should I run? No. We are going to war. We are going to leave everything we have in this ring because this fight is going to be remembered forever. So what you choose to do in these last few rounds, that is what the people are going to remember you by for the rest of your life. Did you come forward? Did you put it all on the line or did you retreat? I wasn't willing to go the rest of my life knowing that I didn't give it my all. Regardless of the cut, regardless of everything I was going through, I knew I had to do what I had to do to win. And my old man's there. He's watching. And, you know, he didn't believe I would be able to do what I'm doing. That's what he's been saying for years. I've got to show him, I've got to show the world, and I've got to show myself that I'm capable of great things. I'm capable of going through things that 99.999% of human beings on this earth were not willing to go through. And that will live forever. And that's a beautiful feeling. A week after the fight, sitting here talking about it, there's no amount of money that can buy the feelings that I have now. And that is the genuine truth. How proud I am of what we achieved in that fight, it's priceless. It's something that, you know, on your deathbed in 60 years' time, you're thinking about it. Yeah, I did that. You can't get that from money. You can't get that from fame. You get that from years and years and years of graft, hard work, and just being true, not cutting corners, not cheating, not being a bully.
Chris, everybody has a different relationship with their family. You've always been a seemingly quite emotionless individual, very cold exterior, as you've described it yourself. So it's really moving and interesting to hear how much your dad meant to you. And as you were speaking, I was thinking back to all these interviews I've seen of you over the years where you cite him as your biggest role model in life. I've kind of got 2 points. The first, I guess, is a point, which is just, I had no idea he meant that much to you. I had no idea. And secondly, the question is, what caused that relationship to strain?
My father is an extremely proud and an extremely intense human being. He has his ways of thinking. He has his ways of living, teaching, parenting, and it's his way or the highway. Nothing else works in his opinion. It got to a stage in my life where I decided to walk my own path, separate myself from this massive character in my father. You know, I had grown up with this pressure and this responsibility, and it became too much. I was known for being the son of for so many years. That's Chris Eubank's son. That's Chris Eubank's son. And I kind of, whenever I would hear that, you know, like, well, at least they know who I am. But it got to a stage where I was like, how do I get away from that? How do I become just me? You know, how do I become Chris Eubank, not the son of a legend? And it dawned on me eventually, the only way to do that is to be separate from it. In boxing, I'm not talking about as a father, I'm talking about in terms of my career, in terms of the decision-making, in terms of the training, in terms of the fighting, in terms of the media, the press conferences. These were all things that he was right by my side for my entire career. I knew that to get away from the shadow, I had to start doing it on my own.
Did you write him a letter?
Yeah. Explaining exactly that. I told him, I'm going to write my own book one day. The book can't be, oh, well, my dad told me to do this, so I did it. My dad said, don't take that fight, so I didn't take that fight. He told me to train that way and go here and wear that. It's not a book. It's not a life. I need to be able to write my own story into history.
What did that letter say that you wrote to him? And why didn't you tell him to his face?
I needed him to understand and read it and reread it and reread it without interruption. You know, if I'm talking to him like I'm talking to you, as soon as something is said that is maybe a little bit, oh, I don't like that, or I don't agree with that, he will be ready to jump in and say his point. I had to get the whole thing out. Couldn't be in conversation. I said to him, I am the boss. And that broke him. He couldn't handle that. He had been the boss my entire life. He had been in charge of who I fought. He had been in charge of my financials. He had been in charge of my contracts. He was the boss. So for a boss to hear that he's not the boss anymore, that strained the relationship. Oh, you don't want me to be a part of your career anymore? All right, well then bye. That was his reaction. It shouldn't have been that way, but that's how he dealt with the disappointment and the frustration of what I was doing, which was going my own way. Then you have the tragedy of my brother Sebastian passing away. And this would have happened maybe a year or two after I sent that letter. That affected him deeply. It affected all of us deeply. But yeah, it affected him so much that, you know, you add those two things together. He's already upset with how I've spoken to him and what I'm doing in my career. My brother passes away, and that caused him to do certain things in his life, which, you know, I don't like talking about it, but I'm going to talk about it because it was actually documented. If it wasn't documented, I wouldn't speak about this. And I've never spoken about it. he started smoking marijuana. I guess to um, deal with the hardship of losing a son. Everybody deals with these things in their own ways. I can't fault him for that. But I think that that changed him as a man in terms of his mindset, and it caused an even bigger gap between us, which we never recovered from up until last weekend. Since that night, before the night of the fight, and every day since then, it's been all love between me and my old man, which is incredible to think. I was in hospital for 2 days after the fight. He didn't leave the hospital. And when I say didn't leave the hospital, I mean like he's sleeping on, one of these stretchers outside my room, just in the hallway. That means everything to me. Regardless of the differences and the things that have been said and done, a man who is going to stay by his son like that, that's love. It's been so long since I've had that type of feeling with him. And you only get one father. So now we are going to build. We're going to build. We're going to build. And I think our relationship is only going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. I said it before the fight. This fight is either going to help us build or it's going to break us even more. I don't know. It was up to him, really. And he chose for this fight to be the catalyst for us to be able to build. And I thank God for that.
Did his absence and hearing him call you a disgrace and all of the stuff he was doing in the media ahead of the fight, in many respects to stop the fight, it seemed at times. I actually watched an interview, I think the day before the fight, where he was in tears, saying to a boxing journalist that the fight shouldn't go ahead and expressing his concerns about the fight, etc. Did it impact your mental health?
It was upsetting. It was distracting. It was horrible knowing that, this deeply personal situation we have is now fully public. It's all over TikTok. It's all over Instagram. The headlines, Chris Eubank Sr. calls his son a disgrace. Millions of people are watching these interviews. So for sure, it affects your mental health, your mental well-being. It's negative and it's deeply personal, and you don't want that in the public. It's one thing dealing with family issues, between your family, but when everyone else knows what's going on, it's tough, and it came out of me in that last press conference. Conor Benn talking about, well, yeah, you just worry about making weight. And at that time I was making weight and I was in pain. And I said, I'm in pain right now. And I'm going to be even more pain tonight. And I'm going to be even more pain tomorrow morning when I've got to lose those last few pounds.
I have the actual quote here. You said, "The wait is painful. I'll be in even more pain tonight and tomorrow. The question I ask myself is, what is pain? I have a 31-year-old brother that is buried in the desert in Dubai. That's pain. I have his son Raheem, who is 3, asking why he can't see his dad. Why doesn't he take me to school? That's pain. My own father, a man I've idolized my entire life, and we haven't spoken for years, and he thinks I'm a disgrace. These things are pain to me."
Yeah. And, I am not an emotional guy, especially not in boxing. But in that moment, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, this weight cut and this rehydration clause fucking hurts. But guess what? It isn't anything compared to those 3 things that I listed and the other things that are going on in my personal life that I'm having to deal with and struggle with all while getting ready for this huge fight. So if I can deal with those things, then what is cutting weight? What is dehydrating and starving myself to make a weight? It's nothing. You know, it's a moment of discomfort. You know, my brother passing away, Raheem not understanding that his father is not with us, questioning, why doesn't he take me to school? I see all these other kids, they're coming into school with their dads. Why doesn't my dad take me to school? Why can't I see my daddy? You say he's at the office. Where's the office? Let's go to the office and see my daddy. My own father. Yes, he's a disgrace. These are moments. These are not moments of pain. This is pain that lives with you forever. So that they're incomparable. You know. So when Conor talking about, you just worry about making weight. Don't worry about the weight, mate. The weight's fine. I got I got a lot worse issues than the weight. The weight's gonna come off. I think that was the first time that I kind of got caught up a little bit in what was going on in my life. And the people saw that, and I guess they loved seeing that vulnerable side to me, uh, because it's real, and it's what millions and billions of people are dealing with in their own lives. So to see somebody who's a fighter, who's big and strong and tough, having to go through the same things, it's it's a humbling thing to see. And it's one of the reasons why, when I'm walking to the ring, there are people crying. Oh, his dad came. His dad was there for him after all that. They're together. I'm gonna call my dad after this fight. That's what people tell me. After the fight, I called my dad straight away. Haven't spoke to him for months, years. Called him.
Were you thinking about your younger brother in the build up to the fight, and as you walked out and during the fight? Does that come into your mind?
There is a picture. There was a picture of him on my shorts, right on the side. And he's screaming. And his name's on the bottom of my shorts, Sebastian. That fire, I'm looking at that picture before I'm putting the shorts on. Like, yeah, I'm using that energy. This is for you. This is for Raheem. This is for the family. This is for the Eubanks. I can't look at that picture and lose. It's impossible. It's impossible.
Raheem has had a big impact on you.
Massive. Never thought that I could experience the love and the warmth that I have when I'm around him. I was never the type of guy like, oh, I want a kid. I want kids. I want that. I never got it. I guess I was just too busy with my own life, my own career, my own issues. Raheem comes into my life, and it just, the love I have around him, it makes me want to have my own son. And Raheem is my son, but biologically, I want to have my own son now because I love who I am and how I feel when I'm around him, when I'm teaching him things, when I'm taking him to places and watching him grow and watching him learn new words and new expressions. It makes me really happy, And before Raheem, I thought happiness was, a big win at a poker table or winning a fight or going on some amazing trip. And those do make me happy, but it's a whole different level when you're with another human being who you love and you're getting to show him the world and teach him things and watch him grow. It's incredible. So, yeah, I thank God for him every day.
Is it out in the public domain, the circumstances around your brother's death?
I'm not 100% sure, but He drowned.
He drowned.
He drowned in Dubai. Yeah. He had I don't know if it was a heart attack. It was like something happened with his heart, and of all places, he's swimming in the sea, and it switched him off for a second, and in that second, he's obviously in the water, and he went under, and how insane is that? The guy, you saw him,
Yeah.
jacked,
Yeah,
muscles. He makes his own green juices every day.
Yeah. Alkaline. Yeah. That was his nickname for anybody that's wondering.
Alkaline, yes. Health fanatic. And in a split second, he's gone. It's just, and it just put things into perspective, and it just makes you appreciate and respect life so much more, because you understand that it can be taken away at any time. And it doesn't have to be some crazy car crash, or, it can just be you're swimming, you're swimming and then you're not there anymore. And it makes you live your life with so much more respect and responsibility and appreciation. Before that, I'd have days or weeks where I would just, I'd fuck around, waste time, video games, TV, around people I shouldn't be hanging around with, things that were not productive in any way, shape, or form. And yes, you still have to have those moments in your life where you can just kind of do whatever. Nobody's going to be righteous every day of their lives. But what experiencing some of this does is it makes you aware of life and how precious it is. And it just makes you strive to be a better person so much more, because you know that, we have a finite amount of time on this earth, So are you going to make it count? Are you going to make it count, or are you going to waste it? There are people out there who would kill for the lives that we have. So how can you not be grateful? How can you not be respectful and responsible with your time? We are free. We're free. We did it. We made it. Billions and billions of people on this planet will never know what it is to be free. And in terms of free, I mean, you're not waking up and working, 12-hour shifts just so that you can eat and live. We have free time. We have leisure. We have, disposable income. People don't have these things. So you've got to be respectful. You've got to be grateful. You've got to be responsible with what you're doing.
With all of this on your mind heading into that fight, I remember before the last fight was cancelled, you were saying that you'd be at 60% for the fight and you'd go in there and beat him. What percentage were you at? And I'm kind of coming back to this question again.
You're really trying to get that out of me, huh?
It's really, I'm trying to understand if what I saw was true. Like when I saw you in those first couple of rounds, I'm stood there kind of confused and concerned at ringside, because I'm like, this ain't how he used to look. This ain't what you look like in the other fights. In those early rounds, I was like, he doesn't look like he has the same strength and speed.
Well, I had regardless of what happened outside of my training camp and all the things I was going through, I had a rehydration restriction.
Explain this for people who don't know. Explain what weight you're at right now, you were at before the fight, how much weight you cut, and then what the restrictions say you have to do.
So, and I'm not saying this for sympathy or as an excuse. It was my own doing. I take full responsibility. And I say that because they said we want to have a weight or rehydration restriction on you. So you can weigh in at the middleweight limit of 160 pounds. But you can only put on 10 pounds before the fight.
Mhm.
Usually, there's no restriction on what you eat and drink. You just refuel and replenish your body to as much as you can so that you have full energy for the fight.
What weight do you walk around at? Just so I have context.
So in context, I usually put on maybe 14 or 15 pounds after a weigh-in. So but I could only put on 10 pounds for the fight. If I go over the 10 pounds, I've got to pay $1 million fine.
But if I saw you in the street in like 2 months' time, what weight would you be at?
Well, now, if I'm not in a camp and I'm not trading, then I'll probably be, I don't know, 180, 185 pounds.
Okay, so 185 pounds. So you've got to lose roughly 25 pounds to get in shape for the fight to make weight.
Which is, it's doable. It gets harder as you get older.
Mhm.
That's for sure. Your metabolism slows down. It becomes harder to shed those last few pounds. And it was hard. I documented my weight cut for this fight. I was in sweatsuits, and I had to be wrapped in these heated sheets. And I lay there for half an hour and I'm just sweating everything out. And then I'm doing all these things to just drain my body of all the fluids. And it's torture. You're torturing yourself. You're literally torturing yourself doing this. But you've got to make the weight. If you don't make the weight, they're coming for that cash, baby. And that's what they've done. Unfortunately, they got me on the middleweight limit. I was 0.05 pounds over the middleweight limit. I didn't mess up on the rehydration clause. So the next day I didn't go over the 10 pounds. But the fact that I had to restrict what I was eating and drinking after my weigh-in, that takes percentages off of your performance naturally.
So you check in at 160 pounds the day before, and the rehydration clause says, is it 8 a.m. the next day you have to weigh again?
Yes. So it was between 8 and 12.
Okay. Oh, so 8 and 12.
Yeah.
You have to weigh again.
So I think at 12 o'clock I weighed in at 169.4.
Yeah. So you can't gain more than 10 pounds overnight, which means you can't be drinking too much or eating too much of what you want to eat.
There should have been no rehydration restriction in the first place.
If you'd said no to it, would the fight have still gone ahead?
Yes.
So why didn't you say no to it?
Why do you think?
They paid you more?
Absolutely.
How did you get paid an 8-figure number for this fight?
Yes.
Okay.
I was so confident in my ability to beat Conor Ben that I thought, you know what? If you guys want a weight restriction so badly, I'll let you have it.
Did you get paid the same?
But you got to show me the money. I'm not doing it for free.
You named your price, didn't you? I heard.
Yes, I did.
And Turkey said yes.
Yes, he did.
At the first number you named. You fucked up.
I should have got, oh man, I could have got a couple cars or,
You should have doubled it and then come down and met him halfway.
But that's the thing. When you're negotiating with promoters or broadcasters, you come in high, expecting them to come in low, and then all right, know this and then that. And then. That's usually what happens. The Saudis they're not normal people. They don't have normal money. So a number that you think is fucking great, to them it's, it's just, yalla, But again, I said, I'm not greedy. They paid me, life-changing amounts of money. That's another reason why I did what I did in that ring. I have a duty to boxing, to the people, to the fans. We can't be making the types of money we're making and give half-assed performances.
Mm-hmm.
That's disrespectful to people, to the sport, to the fans. We are blessed. We are privileged to be in these positions. Earn earn your keep.
Do you get paid on the performance of the fight as well, or do you just get paid a lump sum? How does it work? Because you called Turkey His Excellency. You said a big number. He says yes. Do you get incentivized on how the fight does in terms of pay-per-view?
That's all. That all comes in the contract. So
Okay.
you have your purse,
Yeah.
and then you will agree on. If we get to 500,000 buys, then I get a percentage.
Okay.
And then if it hits 600, I get a percentage. So you work it like that. Or just say, all right, well, we'll just pay you this lump sum, and then we get all of the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
It just depends on how you negotiate.
And so you got part of the performance element as well.
I'm not going to go into details on that specific part of the contract.
In my head, I'm trying to figure out how much that one fight made you, because can you tell me how many multiples it was more than your previous fights? I'm just trying to, that'll give me sort of an idea of the scale of this in terms of a financial windfall.
I mean, it's 8. You said 8 figures, right?
Yeah. So
how much more of a scale do you need?
No, but I mean, what do you normally get paid? He's normally getting paid 7 figures.
Couple million.
Okay, fine. So this is like 5 times more potentially. Minimum.
It was. I don't have to box again. Let's put it that way. But the beautiful thing is, at 35 years old, I'm still hungry. I'm still hungry for success in the sport. I'm still hungry for accolades. I'm still hungry to please the fans. A lot of times it's happened throughout history. Fighters will get paid big for a fight, and then they lose that hunger. They lose that dedication, that respect for the industry. Oh, well, I've done it now. Now I'm, let's go to the club. Let's pop the bottles. Let's celebrate. Let's travel. Let's buy this car and this watch, this house. Oh, it's gym today. Tomorrow. It's okay. It's okay. That's the trap that so many fighters fall into. And that's why I have so much respect for Floyd Mayweather. He has made a disgusting amount of money, and his performances and his dedication never, ever, ever changed. That is, it's incredible, because guys, they make their first million and their head's gone. Oh, I made it. All right, cool. No, it's not cool. Boxing is a lifestyle. It isn't a one training camp. It isn't one fight. It is a lifetime of dedication and sacrifice, which is why I never gave up going through all the things I was going through leading up to this fight, because I know I've put the work in since I was 14 years old. So it doesn't matter what's going on in these 2 months. I've served my time. I've been through the trenches time and time again, and I've always found a way to survive. So I'm going to do it now. Not, oh, well, there's weight clauses and my dad is giving me issues and this and that and that. So this is going to be tough. Maybe I shouldn't do this. No, you're going to get through it. Just like you got through that treadmill run, just like you got through that cut in that fight, just like you got through in that cramp in your leg in that fight. You build up a tolerance for pain and suffering.
You did look like a man possessed. At moments in the fight, to me, you looked like a man that had nothing left in the tank, but one that was still possessed, as you've kind of said, by something else. Because even when it looked to me like there was no energy left, your arms were still swinging and you were still marching forward. So it was confusing. It's always confusing to me, because when I feel like that, like I don't have that reserve tank, which was something else. Like I actually can't swing my arms.
There was no reserve tank. There was nothing left.
What's going through your head in those moments when you've got no energy, but Conor Benn is in front of you and there's still minutes left in the round? Are you thinking? Is it like a conscious?
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
I remember going back to the corner in the maybe the 8th round, 7th or 8th round. and I can hear my trainer and my cornerman. Gotta use the jab, Chris. Just stay on your jab. You're good. Control the jab. Use your feet. I looked at him. I said, "It's too late. It's too late. I'm sorry. What's gonna happen is gonna happen. You'll see." There was a look of confusion on their faces. You know, when you have an instruction from a trainer and a team, you're supposed to abide by it. So when I'm telling them it's too late, what do you mean it's too late? I had already gone into war mode. Once you commit as a fighter, once you commit to a certain path you're going to walk down, it's pretty much impossible to then switch back. I had a cut from a headbutt. You know, the blood was going down into my eye. I couldn't see. Fights can get stopped from cuts. As soon as that cut happened, I knew that there was no more boxing. There was no more jabbing. There was no more technicality. There was no more being pretty with it, defense. Nope. It's go time now, baby. We're going to see how much this kid really wants it. Because I want it. I don't know how much he wants it. We're going to find out. Let's find out. Come forward, you attack, you walk through the punches. It doesn't look good. Doesn't look pretty. It's not boxing. It is trench warfare. You know, when you're dehydrated as well. After the fight, my face is swollen up. And that's not from the punches. That's from severe dehydration. It's this weird thing where, like, when your body doesn't have any moisture in it and you're dehydrated, your face puffs up. I think it's just the skin is weak and it just puffs up. And that's what I was suffering with most in hospital, was just complete dehydration. It got to a point where I was in the hospital and I was lying in the bed, and they had drips, IV drips, to get all the liquid into your system. And my bladder was full. Like, I really needed to pee. For about 2 hours, I'd get up, go to the toilet, I stand over the toilet. Come on, man, come on. Would not go. And I'm dying to go. That's how dehydrated I was, that my body would not let any liquids, any moisture go. It was holding on to everything. There were moments in that hospital where I'm feeling, you know, I caught myself in the mirror. I see my face is all puffed up. This massive cut across my eye. My headache is crazy, you know, and I'm feeling sorry for myself. I'm like, this is fucked up. You know, I got my family around me there, you know, some of them are crying, and I'm like, this is so bad. I'm lying there, I got my mask on, oxygen mask. I can hear everything that's going on. We're in a ward. Somebody gets wheeled into the room next to me, and it's only, you know, there's no walls, it's like sheets just separating. I'm looking up. I'm like, oh man, this is so bad. Get me the morphine. They can't get you the morphine until they sign off on some stuff, so I'm waiting there. This is so bad. And then I hear the doctor say, we have to operate on him now, otherwise he's going to die. I heard that from the other room, and I thought, oh my God, I'm great. I'm blessed. I should not be feeling sorry for myself at all, because I you know, I knew I was in pain, but there's a guy next to me, he's about to die. What am I doing feeling bad for myself and complaining about a headache and a cut eye? He's about to die. And I don't know, you know, they wheeled him off and I don't know what happened to him. I pray that he's okay. But that put everything into perspective for me. You know, I'm okay. I'm blessed. I'm going to be okay.
Quick one. I want to talk about something we all need to take seriously, which is cybersecurity. Whether you're a first-time founder facing your very first audit or a seasoned professional who's been through it all, staying compliant is getting more critical than ever and more complicated, I have to say. And that is where Vanta comes in, who is a sponsor of this podcast. Vanta takes the pain out of security compliance, automating the tedious but essential process of proving your business is secure across over 35 frameworks like SOC 2, ISO 27001. Centralize your workflows, answer security questions up to 5 times faster, and protect your business without losing focus on growth. And this is really a critical part of this. A new IDC white paper found that companies using Vanta save over $535,000 a year, and it pays for itself in just 3 months. For a limited time, my community gets $1,000 off Vanta at vanta.com/Stephen. That's VANTA.com/Stephen for $1,000 off.
When you talk about the fight, you say what we did. You're referring to you and Connor did. Have you got a newfound respect and appreciation for him? Because before the fight, that was certainly not the case.
I said it after the fight. I wasn't expecting him to be able to do what he did in terms of show the heart and the determination and the will to win. He never gave up. I didn't know he had that in him. I hadn't prepared for a 12-round fight like that. I thought that I would get to 5 or 6 rounds, he'd start feeling the pace and he'd look for a way out. He did not do that. So in that respect, I have respect for him. The fight finished. I did not shake his hand. I didn't congratulate him. I didn't speak to him. I didn't hug him, which is what most fighters, pretty much all fighters, do after they fight. And then especially a fight like that, you would expect that. I couldn't do it. I didn't have it in me because in my mind, you know, this kid is still a drugs cheat. He still tried to cheat in our first fight. Failed 2 drugs tests. Never owned up to it. Denied it, denied it, denied it. No apologies, no admittance, no matting up. I can't forgive that. I can't respect that. I can't shake that hand until there is some accountability. He's not going to give it. You know, I have to set an example to the kids that are watching this fight, that are watching these scenes. You know, if you cheat, if you take performance-enhancing drugs, you don't get respect from me. I can't give you that respect because there are kids who are saying, oh, well, hold on, he was doing drugs a couple years ago, he got caught, but now it's okay, you know.
So this really did bother you. I wasn't sure if that was just part of an act to sort of promote the fight. You would, you know, the egg slap, the constantly berating him about this, the voluntary the doping ban that he had. So I think it was July 2022 or September 2022, Conor Benn failed 2 voluntary anti-doping tests for clomiphene, a testosterone boosting substance, and therefore the original fight was cancelled. The UK Anti-Doping Association formally suspended Conor for a doping violation. They reinstated Conor, citing egg contamination, and then reinstated Conor's suspension following an appeal. Ultimately, in November 2024, Conor was cleared to fight after the panel ruled that they had failed to prove intentional use. I wasn't sure if you were actually really bothered by this or whether it was part of the promotion of the fight.
Bothered is an understatement.
Really?
Yeah. I don't hold grudges. I'm a man that can forgive. Never forget, but I can forgive. But when it comes to something as serious as drug cheating in this sport, you saw what we had to go through. So if somebody's got something in their system which is going to make them fight harder, take more punishment, react quicker, that is a form of attempted murder, in my opinion. You're going into a fight with extra weaponry.
Is it possible that he didn't intentionally take something, in your view? Have you considered that? Do you know, for me as just an onlooker, I saw him, the emotional impact it had on him. I saw him in tears. I saw him talking about suicidal ideation after that came out. And there was part of me that did wonder for a second, maybe something did happen, because that is the reaction of someone who is truly deeply devastated in a way that an innocent person would be. And imagine if he is innocent. Imagine if he didn't intentionally take something.
You can be suicidal and devastated after getting caught doing something you shouldn't have done. You can still have that reaction. Let's say that he did unintentionally take these drugs. Somebody slipped something into his drink. Somebody contaminated his eggs. Somebody injected something into him when he was at a doctor's appointment. I don't know, however you want to fantasize this beautiful story. Let's say that this impossible thing has happened. As a fighter, as an athlete, you only have a few jobs that you have to do. You have to train hard. You have to go to sleep on time. You have to prepare. You have to make sure that your diet, your fluid intake is on point, so that you have the energy to go into these fights and to these sporting events and be able to compete at the highest abilities you can. Aside from that, there's not much else we have to do as an athlete. It's your job to know exactly what you are putting into your body, whether it's food, whether it's fluid, whether it's drugs. You have to know. That's your job. So if you're irresponsible enough to let somebody slip something by to where you fail not one but 2 drugs tests, if you're irresponsible enough for that to happen, then you're still a cheat.
Could you shake his hand now?
I told you I didn't shake his hand after the fight. 1, because he's never owned up to it. And 2, it's very likely that we are going to be fighting again.
You slapped him with an egg in the press conference beforehand and you were fined £100,000 for that slap with the egg. Do you regret the egg slap?
Worth every penny, my friend.
Really?
Yeah. It was a symbol. It wasn't an act of violence. It was an act of justice. It was an act to make sure that for the rest of his life, he will never be able to forget what he did. People will always know. Ben, yeah, remember that time you hit him with an egg? That will be with him for the rest of his life. And that's what he deserves for failing those drugs tests. So many times fighters, they fail drug tests, they serve a little ban, they pay a fine, they're back in the ring, and people kind of just forget. Kind of just get swept under. Oh, don't talk about that. Come on, he's doing so well now. Come on, he served his time. No. This kid he's not getting that. I'm going to put this egg across his chin. There's going to be pictures that are going to circulate around the world. That memory will stay with him for the rest of his life. He will always be known for that. Why was it an egg? Why did he hit him with an egg? Oh, because he was treating with drugs and it was a contaminated egg or something like that. I want that story to live with him.
There's a rematch clause. I'm assuming the rematch clause, I don't know how these things work, but I'm assuming you get paid the same again. You get paid more. You get paid more to do the rematch.
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah. This is business. The fight will be bigger.
Okay.
The fight will sell more pay-per-views. It will sell more tickets. There will be you can't get paid the same If you lose, you get paid less. That's how boxing works.
So if you'd lost this fight, you would have got paid less,
Absolutely.
significantly less.
I mean, it would still be incredible numbers, but yes,
You'd lose millions
millions
if you lose the fight.
for sure.
Interesting.
But that's, that's not just because we're working with the Saudis. That's boxing in general.
Yeah.
They say in boxing, you're only as good as your last fight. If you win, you can demand more the next time. If you lose, well, you lost, so we're going to give you this.
So this rematch clause, if you decided to walk away now, or Conor decided to walk away now, is there any penalty?
That's a good question. I don't know if there's a penalty. Well, yeah. Maybe I could be sued.
Okay.
Yeah. There's probably, all that stuff. I have, lawyers that deal out all the small print. But, in all honesty, I was like, you guys want to sign a rematch clause for this? No one's going to want to see a rematch after I do this, what I'm going to do to you. That's what was in my head. I was like, wow. They're contracting me. They have to deliver a rematch. They have to pay me this amount of money minimum. This is amazing. Because I'm going to go out there, I'm going to blast this guy out, and then, and people probably aren't going to want to see a rematch. So this is amazing that I'm going to actually get it contracted in now.
Did you even think that in the day before the fight when you were struggling? Did you even think you were going to blow him out even when you were struggling?
That's how much I didn't respect the, not even the ability, because I knew he had ability, but the mindset.
Were there people around you encouraging you or floating the idea of you pulling out of the fight because of your health condition?
I never said I had a health condition. You are, kind of listening to what I've said, and that's what you've taken away from it. I'm not confirming or denying that, just to make that clear. I'm not going to answer that question either.
Okay. So does that mean that there is going to be the rematch this year?
I mean, contractually, that is what is on paper.
Turkey's already booked the arena, I hear. He's already booked it in September.
I doubt that it's already been booked, but, they have their plans, they have their direction, and, with the Saudis, when they want something, they get it. Nobody stops them from doing what they want to do. So it's very likely that that fight will happen again at some point this year.
And do you want that fight next?
I want what the fans want. If the fans want to see it next, who am I to say no? It's a fight that's inspired people. I got friends calling me up, messaging me. Oh, I took my son down to the boxing gym for the first time today. Like, it's getting kids into gyms. He never wanted to box before. He plays football every day. Now he's in the boxing gym and sending me pictures of him hitting the bags and stuff. It's amazing.
Crazy. How much better do you think you could be as a percentage? If your dad's back in your corner now, you're going to be a bit more versed in, I guess, preparation and with the weight cut or whatever. You said pointed out a few things you said you would have done differently.
Well, I fought him. I've lived with him for 12 rounds. I know what he is, what he's capable of. So in that aspect, the next fight for me should be a hell of a lot easier. Because, I'm one of them fighters, all I need is to experience it one time. And then I know what to do with you. That's how I've always been, especially in like sparring.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first time I ever went into a gym, I can't remember if I told you the story, but I got my ass battered for 3 rounds. The first time I ever went to a boxing gym. But I knew what he was. I knew how strong he was. I knew how fast he was. I knew the type of punches he threw. So after 2 months of training and preparation, I got back into the ring with that same guy and I battered him. That's all I thought about. you know? So I believe the same thing will happen with Connor. I won the first fight and I got to experience what he is. There's so many things I know now about him that I can practice, perfect, tweak, tailor my performance to take advantage of his weaknesses. And he will probably do the same with me.
Yeah.
But my experience is so more superior to what he is in terms of what I've done and the guys I've faced. I know how to capitalize on being in a ring with somebody before that he doesn't. I've been in rematches before. I've rematched Liam Smith, who beat me in the first fight. And the second fight blew him out of the water. So I know what it is to do that. He doesn't.
Was Connor faster than you were expecting?
Yep.
Was he stronger than you were expecting?
Yep. Stronger, faster, tougher, and most importantly is more mentally prepared and more mentally willing to put it all on the line. That was the most shocking thing to me. I didn't think he had that in him to stay in there and show that dog. We both had to be dogs at the end of that fight and throughout the entire fight. I didn't know he had any dog in him. I thought he was the type of guy, if it's not going my way, I'm going to look for a way out. He's not that guy.
So how does that feel, knowing now that you're getting into the ring again potentially in September this year with someone who is absolutely unwilling to quit, that is an absolute dog, that has also learned from you? Is there not an element of you that goes, fucking hell, I'd rather avoid that. I've got 8 figures in the bank and, I could buy a boat, I could chill, or I could go back in that ring with that dog and might bust my eye and be back in hospital. I'm going to have to go through the weight cut again and the dehydration again. And
it's exciting. I'm sick in that way, in that I love being in these positions where what's going to happen? Am I going to be able to do it? I live for that. I live for those moments. These are the moments that when I'm 60, 78 years old, I'm going to look at and be like, wow, I did that.
You're sick in the head.
Well, you have to be sick to be in a fight like that, come out of the ring a week later and think, you know what? I can't wait to do that again. That is kind of sick. I'm dehydrated, I'm cut, I'm tired, I'm in pain. There's something sick about it. But you have to be wired differently to be a fighter of any type of grade. You can't be a normal human being. Most human beings, when they're in painful situations, what can I do to avoid that? I want to get into it more, see how far I can go. Can he break me? No, but let's find out if he can.
So talk to me about the walkout. The fight was legendary, the build-up was legendary, but the walkout was also legendary.
I've seen messages. I watched the walkout 50 times.
Yeah, I watched it like 15 times. It was iconic.
Like, wow.
It made me fall in love with the Dre song again.
Yeah. That's my anthem. That's the song I've been walking out to for my entire career. So to have an orchestra playing that behind me was special.
You had Simply the Best as well.
Yeah, Simply the Best.
Which I'm guessing was a last-minute addition.
Absolutely. We were supposed to have an artist. We were in talks with Central C. He was going to bring me out.
Really?
And then, obviously last minute, my old man came into the picture and, we had to cut out all these other things we were going to do.
Your dad requested a song, didn't he?
So he said, what do you want from me? Or what do you think I want? I said, I don't know, Dad. You want a hug? He said, I don't want anything. And then later on, he said, you know what? There's one thing. There's a song that I want you to play at some point in the walkout. And I'm like, oh, here we go. We've already got Simply the Best. We've got a whole orchestra for my song, Dr. Dre. how are we going to squeeze in some random song I've never heard of? But my old man's my old man. And I was actually kind of annoyed because I'm like, the truth is you haven't been around. You haven't been a part of the fight. You haven't been a part of the whole setup. We've had all these, all these things, preparing for the show. And now all of a sudden, you're coming in and you're saying you want this song. I'm like, you know what? You being there is what's important. And if you're saying that's what you want, we will find a way to put it in. And I listened to the song and I was like, I didn't get it. I thought, oh, it's just one of my old man's kooky requests that, even on the night, I'm up on the stage, we walk up onto the stage and look out into the crowd. The Simply the Best song stops. And in my head, I'm thinking, oh man, that would have been so much better to just keep that going, And then this kind of ethereal tune pops out over the stadium, and I'm looking out into the crowd, and I'm starting to see people well up. Like, Jesus, this guy, how does this guy do? He always, even when you think he's crazy or wrong, he's right. And this song was like, it worked perfectly with the whole scene. Me and my old man finally standing together, and there's this like peaceful song that comes in, and we're together, and it's like a beautiful moment that I never thought would happen. That wouldn't have happened if it was just Simply the Best, because it's a different vibe,
It took the energy.
It took it down,
and it went boom.
And then for everyone to just focus on what was actually happening. So we're there and we're listening to this song, and it's like it's an amazing moment. And then it drops into the orchestra.
Yeah.
And it was just perfect. I was like, wow.
And then it dropped into the beat as you started walking.
Yeah.
It was iconic.
And it's like, you can't script this type of stuff. It's like, I keep hearing people say, oh, it was like WWE, but in real life. And I've never watched WWE, so I don't really know what that means. But someone was telling me, oh, well, obviously everything's scripted, but they act like it isn't.
Yeah.
So like the commentators and, but it's all, so it was like that, but it was real and it was happening in front of everyone for the first time. Everyone was like, what? And these were real reactions. It wasn't fake. It's crazy.
The way your dad stepped out the car and put one leg out, and then you hear the commentators scream. It was
even that moment. So it's like, if I was on that side of the car, because we're in the Rolls Royce, but what if I was on that side? So then we park up and then it's me that gets out. Obviously it's still a very cool moment, but it's different when that was a good moment for him to be shown, And then I come in from the side and we hug and we walk in.
And you couldn't hear that the arena had erupted?
No, I didn't know. I didn't know until people were talking about it.
Billy Joe, he tried to get into your dressing room to do your hand wraps, caused a scene outside with our friend Napa, who I've known a long, long time. Billy Joe, you had a fight with him in the past. Contentious fight. He got the decision in that fight, but it was a contentious fight. How do you feel about Billy Joe?
There's very few people in the sport, in the planet, really, that I genuinely dislike. He is one of those people.
Who do you dislike more, Conor Benn or Billy Joe?
Well, Billy Joe's a drug cheat too. So, Billy Joe. Yeah, because not only is he a drug cheat, but he is actually a real scummy human being, And I don't talk about anybody like this. So if I'm saying it about him, there's a reason. He is a bad, bad person. A terrible advocate for the sport. Just a real low-life human being. And I don't say that about any of the guys I fought. I'm not even saying that about Conor. Even though he cheated, he's still somebody that Um, you know, I can see some of the things he does, and I can see why people will like him. There's nothing to like about Billy Joe Saunders. And for that reason, I would love to get my hands on him, because he does have a win over me that I don't believe he deserves, that many people say that he doesn't deserve. A lot of people say I won the fight. And it's kind of just something that's been hanging over me for so long. And I just know that I can beat him. And I just know how much of an enjoyment it would be for me to set that record straight. So that's another fight that's a possibility in the future.
So if you could draw your future, if you could plot your next 3 fights, and you had to decide right now, what would those next 3 fights be? In a perfect world.
I feel like the demand for this Conor Ben fight is at an all-time high right now. So I feel like that would be the fight to make next. Then you have Canelo. That is a fight that I've been wanting for, for years. And I would love to share the ring with that man. And then we could throw Saunders in at the end of it,
This one change has transformed how my team and I move, train and think about our bodies. When Dr. Daniel Lieberman came on the Diary of a CEO, he explained how modern shoes, with their cushioning and support, are making our feet weaker and less capable of doing what nature intended them to do. We've lost the natural strength and mobility in our feet, and this is leading to issues like back pain and knee pain. I'd already purchased a pair of Vivo barefoot shoes, so I showed them to Daniel Lieberman, and he told me that they were exactly the type of shoe that would help me restore natural foot movement and rebuild my strength. But I think it was plantar fasciitis that I had, where suddenly my feet started hurting all the time. And after that, I decided to start strengthening my own foot by using the Vivo barefoots. And research from Liverpool University has backed this up. They've shown that wearing Vivo barefoot shoes for 6 months can increase foot strength by up to 60%. Visit vivobarefoot.com/DOAC and use code DIARY20 from my sponsor for 20% off. A strong body starts with strong feet. This has never been done before. A newsletter that is ran by 100 of the world's top CEOs. All the time people say to me, they say, can you mentor me? Can you get this person to mentor me? How do I find a mentor? So here is what we're going to do. You're going to send me a question, and the most popular question you send me, I'm going to text it to 100 CEOs, some of which are the top CEOs in the world running $100 billion companies. And then I'm going to reply to you via email with how they answered that question. You might say, how do you hold on to a relationship when you're building a startup? What is the most important thing if I've got an idea and don't know where to start? We email it to the CEOs, they email back, we take the 5-6 top best answers, we email it to you. I was nervous because I thought, the marketing might not match the reality, but then I saw what the founders were replying with and their willingness to reply, and I thought, actually, this is really good. And all you've got to do is sign up, completely free. I have to play you this video, which has gone viral. You know this video.
I ask you, I often tell Christopher that boxing is a business that you never see middle class or upper class youngsters become champion. Because you need hunger. You need to be hungry. And the fact that you've kind of been brought up within these 4 walls here and you've been protected, I don't think you're going to be hard enough.
I just want to try it. I just want to see what it's about. If my dad can do it, why can't I do it?
That's the argument. So many people come to understand, you take a beating, is this what it's about? Not for me. And I hope you're not stubborn and kind of
that's what you're stubborn and bullheaded. That's why you made it.
Yeah, but I don't want him to.
So you're saying now you don't want him to be stubborn and bullheaded.
No, listen,
In life,
for the guys who don't make
you might have to be.
For the guys who don't make it in boxing, it's tragic. It's a tragic business to be in. I know.
You're convinced he's not going to make it. Just let him go until he wears himself out of it and he's not bothered anymore.
Yeah, and by then, all those good-looking features would have gone. You know what they say? Let me tell you what. Trust me. Don't, Christopher, just leave it alone. And you know what?
Remember what they said, right? Okay, am I bad looking? Okay. Why are you putting that into the kid's head?
Because I don't want him to fight. I don't want him to fight. Everyone gets hurt. Everyone get disfigured. Everybody get used.
What you're seeing is irrelevant at this time.
Irrelevant?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it may not happen. It's like worrying about what might not happen.
You let me just bring this point to you. I would never want, when I have kids, for my daughter to be in a car crash. So, what do? I say I'm not buying your car and you can't drive. Is that the right thing to do?
I just want to try it.
It's a really okay. I will I'll let you try. All you've got to do is tell me the word. If you tell me, I'll help you. Okay?
Dad, I've always said yes. Stop saying you say yes or no. I want to do it.
You want to do it?
Yeah.
Okay. Now there's one to watch. There'll be one to watch. But I so hope it's not in boxing.
What's going on there in that video that I just played?
Fear. That's a father who is thinking about all the things he's gone through and fearing that his son will walk into that, into that industry, walk down that path and have to go through all those things that he went through, that he worked so hard to kind of keep his family away from.
So you got Lennox Lewis siding with you, and that's your mother?
Yeah.
And she's also trying to persuade him to let you have a shot at boxing. When you watch that video now, after everything that happened with the fight we just all watched, where there was almost 70,000 people in an arena, people watching all over the world, it's been this global phenomenon, not just in the UK, but I was in America and New York this weekend, and the people are talking about it there. How does it feel to look back at that video?
It's scary, man. It's scary. I mean, everything he's saying is right. He's completely right. Boxing is a tragic sport for the people that make it. You get disfigured and used. Disfigured. I've been used plenty of times. It's scary to think about how far we've come from that moment in time. All the things I've gone through, the things I've done. And, he had every right to feel the way he did, because champions, hard men don't come from those backgrounds that you saw. That was filmed in a multi-million-pound house. I went to private school the next day after that interview. Kids that live that life don't accomplish anything in such a barbaric sport, because there's just too much pain and suffering you have to go through. And there's too many times where naturally you'll look for ways out. Now, the kids that come from broken homes, poverty, and, nothing, they don't have any other doors to open and walk through. So when they go to the gym and when they go into these fights, if I don't get through this door, I don't eat. I can't pay the rent. Can't feed my family. For me, when I'm looking at that door that I have to go through, whether it's in a gym or in a fight, I know that if I don't make it through that door, there's a door there and a door there and a door there and a door there. And if I'm experiencing too much pain to get to that doorknob to open it, I can just step back. You know what? All right, let's go over here. Football, business, acting. I could do whatever I wanted with the position I was in as a kid. I still wanted to walk through that horrible, painful, nasty boxing door and open that door. And you walk through the door and you get punched in the stomach. And you go through that, and then you got to walk through the other door and you get cut above your eye. And just keep walking, keep walking, keep walking, keep walking. And there's all these other doors. Hey, come. We'll just take the easy route. Take the easy route. No, I'm staying here. So it was so much harder for me to do what I was doing because there was so many other choices. And my father thought that as soon as I reached that first door, I'd be like, you know what? Nah. He said it. I'm not going to be hard enough. And 9 times out of 10, kids are not hard enough in that position. But I was hell bent on proving him wrong and proving myself right. I knew I had in me. I felt what I had in me anyway. I didn't know. You never know until you're in those positions. But the strength and the, that feeling inside of me was so visceral. I was like, there's no way I can't do this. Like if I put everything into this, how can I fail?
Maybe he was calling your bluff.
That's another crazy thing that I used to think about. Was he saying this to make me push harder? Because he's thinking, all right, well, if I say, oh, he'll be great, when he gets to those painful positions, he's already kind of got I've already got his blessing. So it's like, oh, well, he's behind me anyway, regardless. So, I tried my best. Or does he want me to be at that front door thinking, my old man, he said I couldn't do it. Am I going to let him be right? No.
Well, he did put a chip on your shoulder in that regard.
For sure. Massive.
I saw the press conference with you and Eddie Hearn, and I also saw the one where Eddie Hearn walks off and then Frank Smith comes in. Frank Smith is like your brother-in-law.
Unfortunately, yes, he is. Him and my sister have been together for a long, long time, which is an extremely wild thing to think that
the CEO of Matchroom Boxing is basically your brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Do you get along?
No, absolutely not.
You don't get along?
No. We were okay. We were fine for a couple of years, for a number of years. I even spent Christmases with him. But it got to a stage where I started to see Matchroom, Eddie Hearn and himself trying to block me in terms of the business side of the sport. I am with a promotional company called Boxer. Boxer and Matchroom, which is Eddie Hearn and Frank Smith, are, deathly enemies. They are arch rivals. So they do anything they can to screw over Boxer. I'm with Boxer. So Frank Smith is trying to sabotage, or was trying to sabotage, certain things going on in my career, being a part of Matchroom. As soon as I learned that, it doesn't matter that you're in a relationship with my sister. We are not, we are never going to talk again. We are never going to be cordial again. You are working against me. He was sitting in that arena on Saturday night praying that I lose.
Why didn't you sign to Matchroom? Did you try?
They offered.
Why did you say no?
I don't trust Eddie Hearn. I don't trust Frank Smith. I don't trust Matchroom. These people are, they're dangerous. And it's crazy to think that, yeah, he is with my sister. I don't know how that relationship came about, but love is a peculiar thing.
And you're good with your sister, obviously.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
She was there in your corner for the fight.
Yeah. And I was actually thinking, I'm going to ask her, how does it go? Like, you guys go back home together. You guys are lying in bed. I've just won. Conor Benn's just lost. What do you guys say to each other? Because Frank is distraught that Conor Benn lost. That's their golden boy. That's their ticket. I'm my sister's brother. So it's like you've got two completely opposite sides in the same bed. What do you guys say to each other? It's just I want to ask her that question.
We have a closing tradition on this podcast where the last guest leaves a question for the next guest, not knowing who they're leaving it for. And the question left for you is, if you could listen to one album for the rest of your life, what would it be and why?
One album for the rest of my life, it would have to be something timeless, something that can be, that's something that lasts, So it would have to be something like Michael Jackson, Thriller, a classic, something that in 200 years' time, you're going to still have kids listening to it that, yeah, this is my jam right here. Yeah, I guess that would be the album.
Chris, thank you so much for giving all of us as boxing fans a moment that we will never forget. I do have to say, I've been to a lot of boxing fights all over the world, and one of my favorite fights was this Lomachenko fight that I saw in New York. But without a shadow of a doubt, that is the best boxing fight I've ever seen in person. And not just because of the fight itself, but because of all of the subplots and all of the inspiration it gives everybody. Watching you go into that 12th round with Conor and give everything when it was so abundantly clear that you had nothing in the tank sends a message to all of us that there's so much more within us that we probably don't always realize. And sometimes it takes, the family legacy or something deep and profound and meaningful for us to find that in ourselves. But even as you talked about I've had certain challenges with my family over the years, and with my parents, with my mother, and these kinds of things. And there's been fractures and years where I was disowned, and all these kinds of things. And I saw myself in all of that. My mother had some struggles that she went through, which was somewhat similar in elements to the struggles that your father went through. And I know what it feels like. So it gave everybody so much. And I'm so glad you've been able to get out onto the streets for the first time since the fight and feel that, because you brought so much joy, both you and Conor, both so much joy, so much inspiration and memories that I will tell my kids about. And I'll say, I was there for that fight. And I'm so happy for you as well, because I know the career journey you've been on and the twists and turns and everything. So I'm so glad that the public got to know all of you, not just the cold-faced guy that, throws a good uppercut, but the human as well. And it's in part, I think, because of some of the difficult moments you've been through, that you've stepped out a little bit more and become more comfortable with showing the world all that you are. And that's the most valuable Chris that I think the world can see. So thank you. Really, really appreciative. And I can't wait to see these next couple of fights you have as you close out what has been a remarkable career. Thank you.
Amen.
This has always blown my mind a little bit. 53% of you that listen to this show regularly haven't yet subscribed to the show. So could I ask you for a favor? If you like the show and you like what we do here and you want to support us, the free, simple way that you can do just that is by hitting the subscribe button. And my commitment to you is, if you do that, then I'll do everything in my power, me and my team, to make sure that this show is better for you every single week. We'll listen to your feedback, we'll find the guests that you want me to speak to, and we'll continue to do what we do. Thank you so much. This is the Busta Rhymes that none of us have ever seen before. Busta Rhymes says it himself. This is a Busta Rhymes that nobody's ever seen before. You will walk away from this conversation understanding not only what it takes to reach the very peak of your powers, but to stay there for 33 years. To have the insane consistency, discipline, dedication, and in his words, addiction to something that will take you to the very top. But then also you'll see the forces in life that take you from that peak to the deepest depths of darkness. And once you're in that darkness, how do you rise from it? How did Busta take himself from the darkest moment of his life that he's really not talked about ever before, back to the peak of his powers? This is a human story. It's one of the most inspiring stories we've ever had on this show. And it's a side of a guy that we've known for many, many decades that I have never seen before. Thank you to Busta for this conversation. And if you like this conversation, if you like what we do here on the Diary of a CEO, before we get started, I've got a 10-second favor to ask you. About 62% of you roughly that listen to this podcast frequently haven't yet hit the subscribe button. So if you can hit that subscribe button, it is the reason why we're able to get guests like Busta Rhymes to come here and have these conversations with me. I feel like we're a team here. Give a little, take a little. So if you could hit that subscribe button, that'd be absolutely amazing. It's the only favor that I'll ever ask from you. And I promise you in return that I'll do everything to give you more guests like this one and guests that you love. Enjoy this episode. Buster, sometimes I think that with maturity and with age, we're able to look back at our earliest years and connect dots that only our maturity and only our own growth and development allow us to connect. And those dots sometimes indicate to us why and how we became the person we are today. And that's really what I'm so compelled to understand with you is, what is that early context that you look back on now when you go, the reason I am the man I am today sat here is because of this early context and these things and these people. What is that?
Honestly, I have to say it starts with my mother and my father. My mother and my father was strict. You know what I'm saying? And they also made sure that I didn't need for nothing. I was able to really enjoy what it was to be a child. And, you know, I don't have to sit here and mislead people like I come from some poor struggle and I come from this hood shit. Like, yeah, I was in the hood. I was in Brooklyn, East Flatbush, Brooklyn, New York. And I was in the hood with enough of the goons and the hooligans, but the difference about our era and the way you mostly hear artists try to portray it now is even the guys that was the goons and the gangsters and the troublemakers in the street, they had respect and they had integrity and they understood what it was to have proper manners. Like, if my mother, as serious as she was, saw any of the other kids in the street, it was like, I'm giving you an example of how it really literally took a village to raise a child. Like, none of the neighbors on the block would see another child that they watched grow from a little boy into becoming a teenager or something and see that kid misbehaving and not reprimand him in the street, even if they're not his parent. So my neighbors had permission to bust my ass if I was misbehaving. And then they would tell my mother. And if my mother felt like I misrepresented her to make another neighbor have to discipline me, that was gonna get me another ass beating. So you ended up getting 2 ass beatings for every one trouble that you caused. You know what I'm saying? And that shit was important because I think that as a community, that shit is something it doesn't exist anymore. You can't tell nobody else kid nothing. Kids ain't trying to listen to you tell them nothing. They'll lift up something and fling it after you or go upside your head and disrespect you because there's just a totally different value in the way things are done in the community. So it starts with my parents and the way I was raised in the house to have respect for my parents, have respect for my other elders, even if you wasn't my parent, and also even if you was dudes that was in the street, you still an elder, we had to respect you as an elder. In return, that same respect that came from the house, and you, whenever you went abroad and you conducted yourself in that manner, it would garnish the same respect in return. So even if it was a dude in the street on some street shit, the respect that you showed to that elder still warranted a certain respect from them. They wouldn't disrespect the respect that you was raised in your house to have for your family and for them. So that respect was upheld and it was that integrity was defended. And that was a real solid foundation that all of the other floors was built on, which eventually evolved into becoming a skyscraper for me. So I'm gonna start there with the kids. Then I'm gonna go to the neighborhood because again, when my parents was around, I got the same disciplining from the neighbors, the hardworking middle-class families, the less fortunate families that was still in the neighborhood. We all was on the same accord about discipline and respect.
Was it easy to see when you look back how you could have gone another way in that context?
Absolutely, because all of those things were still there. The drug dealing was still there. The shootings were still happening. The robberies were still happening. All of that was there, right? But the beautiful thing was there was a serious presence of balance that was just as impressionable as all of the things that was the negative presence that was strong and that did get a strong hold on a lot of the youth in the community at the time too.
How come you didn't go the other way?
I did. I just was fortunate enough to have something like hip hop that was able to be an alternative that saved my life, changed my life. And I had some incredible people that was around me to support me when I found this interest and I identified with my gift as an artist to be able to entertain people, perform, articulate my thoughts through song and rhyme form. And I had an incredible support system with my moms. I had an incredible support system with just the other friends and family that I grew up with that was in the community. And then, last but not least, the determination that I had to want to be able to not disappoint the people that I knew that really was proud of what I was doing, good, bad, or indifferent.
Who are they?
It was all of them.
All of them.
Right? So, for example, I pissed my moms off when I decided I wanted to start selling weed and selling crack, right? And the guys that was in the street that I was doing it with, when they realized, even though I was doing it and it was cool for us to do it, they didn't really want us to do it. When they started to see that we had potential to do other things that was gonna keep us safe and keep us away from the street. A lot of the time they didn't have a better opportunity to offer us. So they made sure that they was as present as they could be to guide us through the shit that they didn't even want us to do in the first place, which was the stupidness we was carrying on with in the street. So they did everything they could to minimize the bullshit that we would get into so we don't get killed, so we don't go to jail, so, none of that shit would happen. But once they realized they didn't have a better opportunity for us, that is what they felt was the best that they could do. If we're gonna do the bullshit, we gotta be there to protect them and make sure that they straight and we guide them so that they could do it the best way with the least amount of bullshit.
As a younger
kid, right? When they started to see that this rapping thing and this hip hop shit and breakdancing and graffiti and DJing and all of that shit was something that we started to generate interest for, that's when they started to encourage us to do that more.
Instead of crack and...
Instead of selling the drugs, instead of selling weed, instead of stealing this and taking that. And so they were so happy to see we found another way. They wanted us to do that. So the more we did that, if we started to show them any indication as we was making progress that we wasn't continuing to be productive, now it felt like you was pissing off two sets of parents. I'm already pissing off my parents because I'm with them in the street. Now they see me doing this music shit. They like that shit. They proud of me. So if I'm not doing well in that, now I'm disappointing them too.
What was the consequence of your parents separating at 11 years old? Because I think about me being 11 years old. I remember a conversation, my mum's Nigerian, I was born in Botswana, my dad's English.
Right.
I remember around that age, about 10 years old, my parents calling me in and basically telling me they didn't love each other anymore. And it was like the world had broken in half.
Yeah.
It's like you can't comprehend the concept of these two people being separate. It's like
Absolutely.
being torn into two pieces.
Yeah.
How was it for you at 11 years old when you find that out?
It was disastrous for me because, like you said, you can't really ever wrap your head around that. As a child, you don't know how to conceptualize that. Like, obviously there was things that I was able to do and there was enjoyment I was able to have when I spent time with my father that I couldn't get when I was with my mother. There was things that I was always able to get as far as nurturing and being cared for and being babied from my mother that I couldn't get from my father. And obviously divine order is mother and father to make baby, right? So I definitely didn't want to lose neither one of them.
Did you change?
I definitely changed because I wasn't I couldn't figure out how to find my the behaved kid that I was, even though I was still getting into shit. The bullshit really started once my mother and my father got a divorce. The misbehaving really started picking up. The disrespect started to pick up and intensify. The anger was just a lot more.
Why?
It overwhelmed me more because I wasn't happy with my situation. And then I wasn't happy with the way that I was directly impacted by their beef. So like, there would be times when if my mother and my father wasn't getting along, fresh discrepancy between the two of them, say like the day my father supposed to pick up me and my brother, because I only got one younger brother, and say he supposed to come and pick us up on this day and particularly for his visitation weekend. If an argument started with the two of them that morning, my father would get to the house and then my mother wouldn't even let us go. And we would look and see him in the front of the house from the window. And my mom's would just be on some bullshit.
How did you feel looking at him from the window?
It was fucking crazy.
You wanted to go, I'm guessing.
Of course. You know what I'm saying? Because there was things and there was other family that obviously was on my father's side, cousins and kids from the neighborhoods of the cousins part of Brooklyn or Queens and different areas of New York that we would go, that we had friends and with the family and with the neighborhood friends that we met through our other family and other cousins and things of that nature in the different neighborhoods. We wouldn't get to see these people until dad came to get us because moms wasn't cool really with that side of the family like that. My father's side of the family wasn't really rocking with my mother's side of the family like that. So if that rotation didn't happen in the visits, we didn't get to enjoy that. We missed our dad. We was only getting the opportunity to see him, once a week, once every 2 weeks, or sometimes once a month if they beefing with each other.
Did your relationship with your father at that point kind of become a bit strained because of that beef? Did you start to see him less and less and less?
Yeah, I think my conflict with my father, it started to happen more and more because, obviously, the lack of a parent's presence has an effect in different ways, right? And as a son, I don't know what it is, but I just think instinctually, boys cling on to their moms more. I don't know if that's always the case, but in most cases, that's usually what it is. I think my father's personality was a little conflicting for me with the way my personality was. And the contrast of my father's personality as opposed to my mother's personality, it drew conflict for me too. Because my father, he wasn't as interested in the shit that I wanted to do or the shit that I was interested in as a child. Like he always was more serious about whatever he felt was best for my future was all that mattered. It wasn't about what I thought. It was about what he thought. So I always started to feel like in having the comparison and seeing the contrast between that and how supportive my mother was for the shit that I wanted to do. Like, first time I got some pussy, I could come tell my mother. I could sit down and tell my mother about how that felt. You know what I'm saying? I could sit and tell my moms about, my first wet dream or some shit. I could talk to my moms about the music that I'm making in the studio with my crew, leaders of the new school at the time, and I could come home and I could play that shit in the house. I could turn up the shit. Just as long as I did what I was supposed to in the house, my mother was with all the other shit, as long as it was productive and it kept me away from the trouble in the street. That was relieving for her. My father, You tried to talk to him at the time about some rap shit. He's like, I don't want to hear that shit. That shit is a bunch of bullshit. And you wasting your time with that shit. That's how I used to talk. You know what I'm saying? Now, at that time, I didn't respect it. And at that time, I felt a way, I felt real fucked up about that because it was just like, I could be doing some real bullshit. Like I'm actually still 1 foot in because I haven't succeeded at this. This shit don't make me no money. I do this shit because I love it. Like I just love it. So when I'm able to do shit that I love with my friends and with my people that I'm entertained by doing it with them, it's because I have this thing with a crew that there's a collective enjoyment that we're getting from doing this music shit.
Are you still trying to prove him wrong to some degree? Did you find yourself trying to prove him wrong then?
Nah, because I got my opportunity to do it.
But before that moment,
at that time,
yeah,
absolutely, I was trying to prove him wrong. I was so determined to prove him wrong that it forced me to excel. Because the more that he wanted me to do what he wanted me to do,
which was,
my father was a licensed electrical contractor.
Okay.
So he used to force me to come to work. His way of keeping me off the street was bringing me to work with him because he had his own company as a licensed electrical contractor.
How did you feel about that?
I was disgusted with that shit because we working in these nasty fucking buildings with rats and roaches running around and shit. And it took childhood time for me because I wasn't able to be outside and play. That's really what I wanted to do.
And how old were you then? 12?
It started a little younger than that, but right around 12 is when it got serious. I would say like around 10 years old was when it started. 12 is when it got serious because my mother used to send us to different countries every summer with my father, just so we could be able to explore what it was like to live in Jamaica for a summer with the family. Same shit with England. My mother would send us to England. So when I was around, there was one summer we came out here.
You were 10.
I was like 10, 11.
Yeah.
My brother was younger than me, he's like 7. I'm staying in Morecambe them time and Preston, and we went to karate school here. We went to primary school here, and we was breakdancing. And I had these cousins that used to name Samantha and Michaela. They used to take me in Val. They used to take me to these little clubs because they used to bring us to like this little area where it was like I wouldn't call it a downtown area, but there was an area like a downtown area in the Morecambe area and in the Preston area and in the Blackpool area. And we would go and we would break dance out there with the young kids that was from England. And, you know, we had our style of doing shit from New York, and we was some dangerous little motherfuckers. Now, we was getting busy. We was making it happen. We twisting up and popping and all of this shit. So it was something where we just became a part of this breakdance community, and they was always looking forward to seeing us. We would go out there like 3-4 times a week. Other people, promoters, they would see us. They started to book us to come in their clubs. Obviously, we're too young to go in a club. So they would let us come perform 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then we would have to leave immediately. So we made a little money that way, get a little 10 pounds here for a show, a little 20 pounds there for a show. But these are the things that we grew around. So when I was around all of this, and that started to slow down, Dad was like, okay, y'all ain't going nowhere this summer. You coming to work. Do I want to go to work? No. Do I want to be an electrician? No. Do I want to be fucking pulling BX cable through sheetrock? No. Do I want to be hammering nails and then bang my finger? No. Do I want to see rats and fucking roaches crawling over my shoes and my Timberland boots? And I don't want to do none of that. And I'm watching kids riding up and down and papa wheeling on the bike and music playing outside, and I can't do that shit. I used to be super angry at that shit every day with my father.
What did you want to do instead?
I wanted to rap. I wanted to make music. I wanted to break dance. I wanted to do all the shit that hip hop consisted of. Like I became the embodiment of hip hop. And it was the thing that was my excuse to not go to work.
Why did you want to rap?
Well, number one, I wanted to be the DJ first.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? The DJ thing to me, though, I never really got good at it to be the DJ. I was able to do it, but I was never nice enough to become the superstar DJ. And at that time, the DJ was super important because all of the groups had the DJ name. So the Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, Jam Master J, Run DMC. Like, the DJ was always the solo. It was like he was the big shot. So when I'm not really the technology dude, you know what I'm saying? So all of this equipment shit, like, it was just a little complicated for me. And then I actually became an MC by accident. And the interesting part about that was I caught 2 charges selling crack by the time I was 12. And fortunately, the laws was different and I was a minor. So I didn't see no serious trouble, but I was definitely on my way to getting into some serious trouble if my mother didn't say, all right, enough of this shit, we gotta get you out of here. So that's when she took me from Brooklyn and brought me to Long Island. When I got to Long Island, that's when I met Brown, C. Brown from Leaders of the New School, Dinko D from Leaders of the New School. Milo was my mother's sister's son, so he's my first blood cousin. But before we brought in Milo, and even before we brought in Dinko, it was me, Dinko, and another dude named Mystery. Mystery was hustling in the street too. But when we went to Long Island now, a lot of other families was thinking like my mother. They brought their kids from Brooklyn too to Long Island, from Queens to Long Island, from the Bronx to Long Island. So we left the neighborhood, which is the hood we was raised in. We left the hood to come to the suburbs and still be around a bunch of kids from the hood. You know what I'm saying? So the same shit you was running from, we found a way to do the same shit in these nice neighborhoods now. And here we come as the generation terrorizing these beautiful neighborhoods. And we fucked these neighborhoods up.
When you say you became an accidental MC.
This is what happened. I wasn't rapping yet. I was only breakdancing, I was only popping, and I was DJing a little bit, and I was messing around with the graffiti. I wasn't rapping yet. So when I moved to Long Island, I meet Charlie Brown. I meet Mystery. And what ends up happening is in this junior high school now, they got like these lip sync contests, they got rap contests, and you know, we now finally getting a chance to experience what it's like to be in school where you have periods, different periods in classes, and you in one class for 45 minutes to an hour, then the bell ring, and then you switch. I got the hallway action, everybody talking shit. Go to the next class, you flirt with a couple of chicks on the way to the next class. So all of that interaction is starting now. Puberty kicking in crazy. You know, you're 13 years old, 12, 13 now, you're starting to get your hormones just moving different. So obviously you're going through the stage in your life now where you want to impress everybody. You want to be the cool guy in school. So whenever you came to Long Island from the 5 boroughs, it was a thing. Oh, that's the new kid from Brooklyn. Oh, that's the new kid from Queens. Oh, that's the new kid from Bronx. That's the new kid from Staten Island. So me being one of the new kids from Brooklyn, it created this talk. And the rapping thing is happening. Charlie Brown was like the guy. He was like the number one rap dude in school at the time. So one day I'm coming out of the school and we get in the schoolyard and, some of the kids waiting on the school buses. Some of the kids is waiting to see, the football game or the basketball game after school. There was like a cipher that was formed in this particular day, and it was a big one. And it was C. Brown rapping and two other kids, and then C. Brown was getting most of the shine. I walks over to the cipher and I started beatboxing, right? And Brown, he doing his rap shit to my beatbox or whatever, and I'm keeping the beat going for him. And then everything was smooth in the beginning, like he was just rhyming, everything was cool, and he sounded good. And then like probably like a good 30, 40 seconds into it, he just started disrespecting me. So I'm beatboxing for him and he dissing me, and I'm kind of like torn between, should I punch this dude in his face or should I just keep beatboxing and not be the party pooper of the party energy that we have in here?
And you were how old?
I was 12. I was 13 now. And I'm saying to myself, I'm from Brooklyn. And the mentality back then was everybody from Long Island was pussy. It's the suburbs, it's the green grass, it's the flower beds, it's the nice houses. We come from concrete jungle, we come from projects, we come from struggle. So I'm looking at this dude and I'm just looking at him like, I'm gonna fuck you up like in 2 seconds because you a pussy to me, but you disrespecting me in front of all of these people. And if I don't do something, then they gonna look at me like I'm a pussy too. So as I'm getting ready to do something stupid, the rhyme stopped. Like he was done and everybody was bigging him up, and I ain't wanna look like a sore loser. Even though there was no battle, he just chose to diss me for no reason. And I couldn't understand it because I'm like, yo, I'm here to support you right now. I'm giving you the beat and the whole shit. The fuck you doing? Long story short, that was the day. I said, all right, I'm going to go home and I'm going to write a rhyme tonight. And I'm going to come back tomorrow and I'm going to fucking disrespect this youth in front of everybody, the same way he dissed me up in front of everybody. And the next day, I came to school. I waited all day. I ain't tell nobody shit. We got back in that same yard. Nice big crowd the next day. He rhyming again. I started beatboxing for him again. Like it's the exact thing happening like the day before. So we going and I'm doing what I'm doing and everything is cool and nobody ain't got no clue because I didn't say shit to nobody about having raps ready. And the crazy shit is when I wrote my rhymes, I was listening to a bunch of LL Cool J shit because at the time LL was battling everybody on record. You know what I'm saying? He's battling Kumo D, battle Ice-T, battle, he was the one that was trying to take everybody head off. And I was like, yo, I want to come like LL so I could tear this boy head off. So I ended up doing my shit and somehow it went from me beatboxing to him and for him to me telling him, yo, why don't you do a beat for me? And he was like, oh, you got raps ready today? I'm like, just do a beat. Let me just try something. So he did the beat, and I started off the rhyme on some calm shit. And then when I started to get into the disrespect lines, that's when the whole thing just started to happen on its own. Like, my frustration and then me seeing the people reacting to my shit the way that I wanted them to, it just made me more confident, more cocky, more charismatic. And that's when the whole Busta Rhymes thing started to happen. And my name wasn't even Busta Rhymes at the time. I had a fucked up rap name at the time.
What was it?
Yo, My name was terrible, yo. My name at the time, I had two. I had my name from being a part of the 5% Nation of the Gods and Earths, which that name was cooler. That was Lord Tahim, right? But somehow I abandoned that to become like the rappers that had 3-part names, right?
Is there a reason you're not telling me?
I'm getting to it. I'm just trying to help with, I'm setting it up with the proper prerequisite. So LL Cool J is a 3-part name.
Yeah.
Jam Master J is a 3-part name. All of the guys from the Fat Boys, Prince, Marky D, Cool Rock Ski, them dudes had 3-part names, right? I changed my name to Chill O Ski. Yo. That name is so fucking terrible. I know, I'm sorry, bro. Name was terrible. And you know what's so crazy? I kept that name for a long time because I really thought it was the shit because I felt like
Chill O Ski.
Chill O Ski, bro. Terrible. I know, it's terrible. But I really was proud of like, I got a 3-part name like my favorites. And if you want to be like your favorites, you got to do the shit that is a replication of your favorites. And then I destroyed Charlie Brown so bad that at the end of that night, the end of that little battle, that afternoon after school, he just came over to the side and was like, yo, we should be in a group together.
And that's really the day that I guess Busta Rhymes, I guess it's a catalyst moment, the day Busta was born. You talked about how that kind of moment helped you develop your style and your charisma and the way you carried yourself. And from then till when you get signed at 17 years old, I'm curious about what happens in that moment, because that's really, you know, a lot of people at 12 years old or 10 years old or whatever want to be hip hop actors, or hip hop stars, or they want to be whatever, they want to be musicians, but very, very few make it to the top table. What happens between the playground that day and 17 years old you getting signed? When you look back and go, it was for that reason. Was it natural talent? Is it hard work? Is it all of the above?
It's all of the above, but the first thing for me was the addiction to the reaction that I was getting from the people, and I was seeing it and how it felt in real time. And just looking at the fact that I came up with something in my crib by myself in my bedroom that was fueled by a determination of wanting to defend myself like a fight. And a lot of the times, I don't think I might have said it like this. I've said it before, but I don't think I've said it a lot. I don't know if it would have been, I had the same desire to want to be in hip hop. I had the same desire to want to rhyme, DJ, but I don't know if that moment didn't happen, I don't know if I would have pursued being an MC. At that time, it probably wouldn't have happened.
I've sat here with a lot of people who are comedians and entertainers and actors in the biggest movies in the world. And it's so interesting to me that there tends to be an early catalyst moment where they perform maybe in front of the family at Christmas,
right,
or on stage or whatever it is, and they get this reaction. And in that moment, that reaction does something to them on a psychological level, which becomes, the word you used is the word I hear, becomes this addiction.
Yeah.
And I often wonder to myself, because a lot of other people will experience that reaction and not develop the addiction.
Right.
So the reaction, it appears to me, is doing something for those people that they needed at that moment.
Yes, I needed it at that moment. I'm gonna tell you something. It actually happened before that. To want to be an MC happened in that moment. The addiction to entertaining people, and that shit happened when I was like 7, 8 years old. Maybe even six years old, because where it started for me initially was you know, at the time, and particularly like I was saying, how the neighborhood was back then and how we was raised in our house back then, my mother and my father, you know, we had to go to bed at 9 o'clock on a school night. And on the weekends, when we was that young, we might be able to stay up until about 10 o'clock, but we still had to go to bed by a certain time. When my mother had company, or like my father, and they had like family and friends, or, you know, they just had their little grown-up get-togethers, and they get to drinking a little bit. Sometimes, you know, they so entertained by each other's company, they forget to send us to bed at 9 o'clock. They playing music and shit. And I used to have to do things. I would try to creatively come up with ways to avoid being sent to bed at 9 o'clock. So when they playing music, the first thing that I would always get into doing is reenactments of Michael Jackson and from the Jackson 5 and James Brown dance routines. So I used to do that shit, and I was nice with the fucking split and spinning around and shit and just carrying on. I'm doing all type of shit, and I'm for hours until I literally would be sweating through my clothes. But it was so entertaining that sometimes the whole company that was there for my family, my mother and my father, they ended up cheering me on and rooting me on to continue, and they bigging up my mom's about how much talent her son has. And
was it not that feeling then that you were chasing?
That's what it was first. That's what I was saying. Like, I wasn't thinking about being no rapper then, but I knew what that feeling felt like. And I always wanted that feeling. And that feeling started in the crib, and then it translated into me trying to get that attention in the classrooms, which turned me into a jokester in the class. So I would do shit to get the attention of the crowd from the class, and became like this class clown dude, and I would get in trouble and shit. And then it translated from that into, you know, me break dancing and doing all of this hip hop shit, because I loved hip hop, and I was starting to see what was being created as a movement and what was being generated as an interest that was taking over. Like, it didn't matter what else was cool at the time. When hip hop started to really become that shit, there was nothing more important than knowing how to do something that was a representation of hip hop. If you was a graffiti artist and you was fucking dope, you became something that was like on a celebrity status level. But that's when motherfuckers started putting graffiti on clothes, and everybody that was involved with hip hop or some kind of representation of hip hop became some sort of celebrity. So for me, that's why I wanted to learn how to do everything in hip hop, because I still didn't know what I wanted to do. The DJ shit, complicated. The breakdancing shit, I ain't like the fucking bruises I was getting all the time. You know what I'm saying? And the graffiti shit, I was cool with it, but it was really when that situation happened with me and C. Brown, that's now when I found that I was able to get the feeling of when I was this little boy dancing for my parents and their company, and at the same time, I was able to have that spotlight on me being the rapper guy. So it's like all of this shit became the thing that I started to grow, not only this appreciation for it, but I started to grow addicted to the shit.
That is what I was expecting in terms of, like, I was just trying to figure out the psychological reason why you became so addicted to this. Because listen, I come from a background where lots of my friends started rapping and most of them fell off. And then there's like one or two of them that just became like their medication to some shit.
Yeah.
And I've always wondered why they just, like, that individual just stuck at it for all those years.
Yeah.
But in that answer, we have the
I think the biggest addiction for me out of all of it was to be able to say to my father, I wanted to be able to experience the day not knowing if it would ever come, but it was a serious, serious thing. Like I used to write this shit on my wall and just on a piece of paper, and I would stick it on the wall. And it would say, one day I'm going to get a deal, I'm gonna sign a contract, I'm gonna come home with so much fucking money that I'm gonna be able to tell my father, I told you so. That's all I wanted to be able to do. And I wrote that shit and put it on the wall. And I would look at that shit every day. And there would be days still when he would tell me I gotta come to work. And I would look at that sign, and then I would see him outside in the truck, and I'd walk out that fucking house, and I would be mad as hell. Angry. And what I do love about my father as I got older is I understood what he wanted. He just wanted to make sure I wasn't wasting my time. He built this company. He wanted to pass it down.
It was love.
It's love. It was, he need his son to succeed. I'm his pride and his joy. And failure is not an option with my father.
And I guess where he came from, you know, it's the same with my mother. My mother, when I told her at 18 I wasn't going to university, wouldn't speak to me for years. But she comes from Nigeria. She left school at 7 years old. She can't read or write today.
Wow.
So I was the only, of her 4 kids, I was the only one that says I'm not going to university.
Right.
Now she stood in my way and said, don't start a business, et cetera, et cetera. But in my maturity, I go, she stood in my way because she loved me.
Absolutely.
At the time. And everyone goes, a lot of people go through, especially sort of immigrant kids and stuff.
Us primarily.
Yeah.
Because that pain and that struggle, that suffering that they come from, that shit ain't no, that's not this shit that we was raised in.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, me and you, we obviously, even if you was born there, you didn't spend your years there to experience the pain that they did. So you come here now, you still don't know they struggle. They know though. They never gonna forget. And they obviously want the best for their babies, man. My father came to the Apollo to see us. And this what made him even more sure about disrespecting me and disrespecting the rap shit. Me and my crew, leaders of the new school, we had an opportunity to perform at the Apollo at amateur night at the Apollo. And we get up there and we got booed, badly booed. One of the first times, you know, when me and Charlie Brown decided to form the group, the guy Mystery that was with us originally, he got tired of the wait. There was no real light at the end of the tunnel if we was gonna get an opportunity to get a record deal. He was selling drugs in the street too. He decided he wanted to go back to the street and do that. He ain't wanna be in a rap group no more. That's how room was made for Dinko to get in the group, because we still felt like we needed to replace the third rapper. We got our 3 rap dudes now. It's me, Brown, and Dinko. And then I said, yo, we need a DJ. Let me get my cousin. So Milo came, and we ended up doing this show at the Apollo. Got booed, and my father was he was hitting me with the I told you so that night. See, I tell you, yo, waste your time with this little idiot rapper boy shit. If you come and work, that's what I'm gonna tell you, if you come to work, so you can learn some stability and stop waste your time with this rapper shit. That's how he talking to me, and we still in the venue.
Really?
We ain't even leave. He just beating me in the head with this total disrespect. But again, at that time, I hated him for it. As we got older, and that day came for me. I got my record deal when I was 17, and
what was it about you though? Was it the unique style and you had a completely different flow that people were just drawn to that raised the energy on every record you touched?
It definitely was that, and that came completely from dancehall influence, right? So, are you familiar with like Sting?
Yeah.
All right, so yeah. Sting clashes that used to happen from the 80s all the way down.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that I saw in dancehall culture that I wasn't seeing in hip hop was the way when dancehall artists was getting busy and clashing in front of that 10, 15,000 people in that Sting audience, the energy that they had to have to make sure that they're portraying themselves in a way that was just more than the lyrics. It was a complete showmanship that was a collective of things. It was the outfit. It was the jumping around. It was the kicking the foot. It was the flinging your hand and the way you was coming through on the microphone and the flow patterns and the cleverness of the lyrics and the punchlines. It was all of these things. And it was mind-blowing to me because I wasn't seeing that same thing in hip-hop. In hip-hop, you seeing dudes just walking around, you know, they might hold their crutch and they act like they too cool to be that animated. Me, I love that shit. I love kung fu movies. I love karate movies. So all of that shit, hype, and the dancing up and the this and that and the foot, this, that. I just took all of that shit and I said, I'm gonna turn this into what I'm gonna do on these stages. And I think that if I master this shit and I could master my breathing and I don't exhaust myself too soon, try to jump around all over the fucking stage going crazy, I think I might become a dangerous motherfucker that's hard to compete with because dudes are not moving like this on no stage. I'm going to all of the shows. I'm being a student. I'm in the clubs. I'm in the street. I'm everywhere just to see and learn and pull inspiration from somewhere. And I pulled a lot of inspiration from different places, but that was when I found it. Like looking at those Sting clashes and jammies and Kilimanjaro, like all the man from Saxon and all of that was out here, Tipper Irie and all of them, man, like them dudes raised me.
It's so interesting because what you've described there is kind of like my understanding of what creativity is, where you pull from so many different almost clouds of inspiration to create a new one.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about your kids. You said to me before we start recording, you got 6 kids and they're around like 20, 30 years old now.
Right.
Based on what you now understand about what made you stand out different, what it took in terms of your mentality, to use the word student there, if one of those kids comes to you now and says, Dad, what are the fundamentals that I can take from your journey up until that point at, say, 21 years old, that would increase my chance of success no matter the industry? What are those fundamentals?
So the fundamentals that I would give my kids, which I've already feel like I've been given to them, is the first thing is identify with what you love. And once you love it, hone in on that thing until you can master it to the point where people can identify that there's no questioning your love for it. That's the first thing. Once you love it to the point where your actions speak louder than anything you could say about how much you love it, that is always the root of whatever success is preordained or destined to come to you, no matter what it is that you choose to do. Because what is actually going to create the revenue is that you're not doing it from a place of trying to generate the revenue. Mm. You're going to do this shit regardless. So it's not about the money for you. You're fulfilling something in your soul, in your body. There's a feeling that even the money can't give you. There's people that have this money and they still can't find that feeling, man. And there's nothing like it. This is a feeling that really exists, bro, that can actually make you the happiest person in the world. That happens to be my music. Because, and my children understand now, I love my children so much, and I love my family so much, I'm not playing with anything that I know is going to allow me the opportunity to make sure that I can show them and I can take care of them and I can, without compromise, find a way and a means to securing of the well-being of my family. And I found something that I love that has provided me those means and the ability to do it. And I don't have to question how I'm going to get to that on no day. I could be sick. I could be sick and in the hospital and write a song. And even if I'm too weak to say it, I could give it to somebody and work out whatever business I need to work out with that person so they still do that same song. God willing, the success of that song that hopefully is garnished reaches a level of success based on this creation from a feeling that I was inspired by or from a feeling that I got that I can't explain and I can't give to nobody other than through this music that will take care of not just my family, but it actually might take care of filling a space in the millions of people's lives that will hear this shit, that at some point, depending on the impact of the song, they fuck around and see you 20 years from now and become the fucking CEO of Google and will tell you, I am a fan. I loved you. What this fucking song did for me when I was 10, now I'm 30. And at this moment, when I was 10, I remember wearing this little t-shirt with a yellow fucking balloon face on it. And I had my little bicycle outside. And my mother let me play with my two friends 2 houses down. We played this fucking song 10 times in a row until we had to go inside. And that song changed my life. And it gave me the motivation to want to do this thing, evolve into this person, think a new way that allowed me to pursue something that I found that I love. And now I'm a fucking $200 million CEO in Google. I'm a fan of your shit. You're still doing what I love. And I want to sit down with you and figure out something magical that we could do together.
Sounds addictive.
That's very fucking addictive. Fuck that. That's the most addictive shit in the world to me because it's like, that's greater than man. You can't teach somebody how to do that. That's not a book science. That's not school. You know what I'm saying? That shit is, you identify with this gift. We all got the gift. There's something that we've all been blessed with. At some point, if we listen to that fucking little thing that speaks to us inside, some people call it instinct. Some people call it a vibe. Some people call it an energy. Whatever the fuck you call it. Some people call it a voice. Whatever that thing is, bro. If it sparks the thought that changes the whole trajectory to what your life can evolve into because you took a second to listen to that shit, you are identifying with your blessing. You are identifying with your gift. And at that point, you learn what the fuck it is and become one with it and walk in your purpose, bro. So you might instill this thing into the lives of so many people that you live forever through this thing that you've created. That's not a man thing no more. That shit is deeper than man. I am absolutely addicted to that because when you really think about it, that shit is something that's godly. It's weird to me when people find it strange when we call ourselves gods and earths, right? Because I'm saying, what do you want me to be? You want me to be other than God? Anything other than its original form is the worst state of its own existence because you're not even functioning within the nature that you was created to function in. So you can't make me call myself devil-like because you think that it's a blasphemous act for me to say that I'm godly. or I'm God-like, or I'm made in the likeness of the Most High. That mentality is why I function this way. Because I refuse to think that there is nothing that I can't do beyond man. Beyond man. If I could sit down here and smoke a spliff and eat a bowl of cereal and fucking go, yeah, 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 yeah. Or when I step up in the place and when I step correct, I say, yo, what step's correct? Woo-ha, I got you all in check. And the whole fucking planet is doing it. It don't matter what country I go to. And then I get to Sweden and they telling me, yeah, yeah, yeahs, yes, 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 yes. I ain't from Sweden. I don't know that. I just was vibing and bugging out. The weed had me feeling away. Nice little spliff, little food, a little bowl of cereal, and I just was joking in the crib and yeah, 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 yeah. Motherfuckers was laughing in my house. I thought it was funny. I did this shit on the record. I like funny, but I also like serious. There's always a balance between the guys that we found the most entertainment from. All of the dudes that was on TV that we liked, that was the fucking criminals, they was always funny, right? Al Pacino in Scarface, he was a serious motherfucker, but he was funny. Joe Pesci in Goodfellas, serious but funny, right? Mm-hmm. We in the hood, we love the balance between serious and funny. I try to incorporate serious and funny in all of my shit. Bottom line is, my children, the fundamentals I want to give you all, find it, love it, identify with what you love, become one with that thing, pursue it to the point where you become so engulfed in it, you don't know nothing else other than that. Walk in your purpose is what it evolves into.
What kind of human beings do they need to be? Character traits?
All right, this is what it needs to be. Some of it might sound fucked up. First thing is you gotta be selfish as hell. You gotta be selfish. I don't give a fuck. It's the sacrifice, but without great sacrifice and without great risk, there is no such thing as great reward. Can't have one. That math will never math. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You have to have, and I don't like this word, but I'm gonna say it because it's true. You have to be a little maniacal with the shit. Maniac, right? That word isn't good in a lot of situations, but when you're pursuing your destiny, when you identify with your destiny, you have to be selfish, you have to be maniacal, you have to be uncompromising. And you have to move in a way when it comes to those three things, when you function completely in a way where it's an unwavering faith. Like, it don't matter how fucked up that shit might look. It don't matter how much it feel like it ain't gonna work.
Delusional.
Complete delusion. You gotta believe the delusion. Because it's only delusional until it works. So is it really delusional? A motherfucker only gonna call it delusion until it don't work for nobody else to see, but for the whole world to see. And then once the world see it, there's nothing delusional about it. Now your delusion becomes, oh, he was a fucking genius. We didn't see it when he saw it. We didn't understand it when he did. We thought this motherfucker was crazy. But he definitely always figured this thing was the thing to do, and he's stuck by that shit.
When you say selfish, obviously that word has got a lot of different connotations and meanings, but I heard from it that the selfishness is focusing on serving yourself and your dreams and your mission. Like, you were somewhat selfish when you said, I want to be a rapper, even though your father's saying, I want you to come and be an electrical contractor. That was selfish of you to say, no, I want to take care of me first.
That's selfish. I'm meaning even more extreme than that. Yes, selfish to my father, because in a way I don't want to look at it as it was selfish to him. I was just on some, I don't want to do what you want to do. That's not really being selfish. That's just having a difference in opinion, right? Mm-hmm. Selfish, when I say selfish, it means my children, right? I've had to miss moments that we're never gonna get back. I missed my oldest son's high school graduation. I missed one of my daughter's college graduations. I've missed times when I should have been there to teach my child how to drive, or I should have been there to teach my child how to ride a bike. I missed a lot of that, right? And a lot of it had to do with circumstance, and my circumstance, which I obviously contributed to creating for myself, I had to take responsibility for these choices that I made and these circumstances that I created for myself. And the situation that became a real life situation for me left me very few choices. So there was a choice where I could be there for everything, and then the money ain't where it need to be, or I'm gonna do what I love, not just because I love it, and it brings me joy, and it brings me peace of mind, because I would go to the studio, and when I'm in that studio and I close the door, and then I'm in those four walls, I don't have to argue with the child's mother. I don't have to argue with my woman. I don't get talk back from people that choose to have a debate about shit that ain't even worth debating about. All of the unnecessary distractions I can leave outside of that room. And when I'm in that room, I am fulfilling my destiny. I am fulfilling my soul, and I'm making myself get to a place mentally where my peace of mind is so where it needs to be, that not only am I allowed to become, feel, think, and evolve into whatever place my mind takes me, I'm then able to get to that place emotionally, spiritually, mentally, create something, put it in a song, change the effect that I can have as an impact through this thing that I'm blessed with as a gift. And then I could come down off of that and be in a happier place, so that when I do get back around the people that I got to argue with, I'm in a better place to deal with them.
Is there sort of guilt associated with that as you've sort of matured and understood and, you know, had time to reflect on missing those key moments? I worry about this a lot because I'm a workaholic, and I think my work is, in many respects, some kind of psychological escape. And I'm concerned that when I do have a kid, I've got a partner, we've been together 4 years, I'm 31 now, that I might use my work as an excuse to not be there, or I might not make the necessary adjustment to realize that I only get one bike ride moment. So
I'm gonna tell you something. There is no right way and no wrong way when it comes to making that decision, other than what you know in your heart. I definitely live with guilt. I feel like there was things that I could have done without to be there for my children. But I also feel like that's me saying that now, right? I'm in a different place now in my life than I was at that time. And at that time, the mentality that I have now didn't exist then, right? And the mentality that needed to exist then for me to get to this mentality now was important. And it was a part of the needed components to exist in my journey for me to be able to have this conversation now, this mentality now.
was that survival?
It definitely was survival. When you're dealing with 4 mothers all having you in court systems, all getting significant amount of money for child support, all not in the best place relationship-wise with you. Sometimes business is up, sometimes business is down. You have to be able to be swift and changeable, regardless of the circumstances, in order to stay remainable. Because no matter if business is up or business is down, the courts don't care. The child support that needs to come every month, the mothers need to see it because they don't care. When your kids need what they need, they don't care because they didn't ask for this. You can't create an excuse. That's how I was raised. Your kid didn't ask to be put in a situation that you cannot do what you're supposed to do for them. So that's not their problem. You have to find a solution.
It's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot. It's a lot. But I also feel like when you identify with your gift, that's part of the gift. That's what makes it the gift. Because the Most High usually don't give us more than we can handle. You know, and with that being said, all of these things we're talking about, which is one of the best questions that I love that you asked, right? What would I give my kids? And I keep coming back to that because I want my kids to understand that focus on what you love is most primary, being selfish. And when I say selfish, not just my kids, but even my woman. There might be a lot of shit she want to do. Sorry. I can't do it right now. I can't do it right now. I could do it later. And then there's moments when you can do it and you make the time and you do it, you know? But until there's another means of me being able to do what I love and find the fulfillment that I find while I'm doing what I love, this is also a part of who y'all fell in love with.
I want to talk to you about one of our sponsors, LinkedIn Jobs, super quick, because without LinkedIn Jobs, the Diary of a CEO team simply wouldn't exist how it is now. I've probably hired about 90% of our current team through LinkedIn, and I wasn't just looking for CVs as you've seen in my posts. I've never cared about CVs. I was looking for passion, expertise, dedication, and above all else, kind people, which tends to be really hard to find on job sites typically. But with LinkedIn Jobs, you're not just getting a CV dump, it's like walking into the world's biggest networking event. If you're a small business, I get it. We're juggling a million things, often without the luxury of a HR department. But LinkedIn makes the hiring process intuitive, smooth, and super efficient. They've even rolled out a new feature using AI to craft job descriptions for you for greater efficiency. So here's my tip to you. If you're looking to hire the best professionals, make your life easier and use LinkedIn Jobs. And right now, for our Diary of a CEO community, you can post your job for free at linkedin.com/DOAC. That's linkedin.com/DOAC. Terms and conditions apply. Let's talk about Zoe, who you may know because they're a sponsor of this podcast and I'm an investor in the company. You guys know health is my #1 priority. Zoe's growth story has been absolutely incredible so far. They're doing science at a scale that I've never seen before. Because of their members and recent breakthroughs in research, they can now continue to offer the most scientifically advanced gut health test on the market. Previously, the test allowed them to analyze 30 bacteria types in your gut, but now, thanks to new science, they've identified 100 bacteria types. This is a huge step forward, and there's nothing else that's available, even close to it, on the market at all. So to find out more and to get started on your Zoe journey, visit zoe.com/Stephen. You can use my exclusive code CEO10 for 10% off. Don't tell anybody about that, okay? Just for you guys. Moments in our life, I think, help us to see things a little bit more clearly, and especially when they're really significant moments. And one of those moments that I see in your story is in 2012, where I think you're 42 years old at the time, and your manager and friend Chris dies.
Rest in peace to Chris. Chris was all that I knew. Everything that I learned after Chuck D and Hank Shockley and them, I learned it with Chris. I learned how to make my money with Chris. My tax brackets changed with Chris. My lawyers changed because Chris. My booking agents changed with Chris. My touring experiences changed with Chris. My ability to tell my mother to quit her job and never had to look back to work for nobody from 1995 to this day. All of that, I did it with Chris.
That day when you find out that Chris is passed,
Mhm.
can you take me to that day?
That day was so fucking terrible, bro. Wow. His life changed when this woman came into his life. I'm not going to dive too much into that part, but I'm definitely going to say that Chris's life changed not for the better when she came around. So, once that happened, it started to change the energy amongst the Violator family. And I really wish, because I don't want this to be heard in a way where it seemed like I'm shitting on the woman, because I'm not shitting on the woman. I'm acknowledging the reality of the situation. As you can see, I'm not saying nothing bad about the woman. I'm just talking about, I'm acknowledging a time period where a change transpired in a significant way, and it happened after this woman came around. That's it. Long story short, I think his daughter was coming home from college, and he had to go and meet her at Grand Central Station in Manhattan. So he asked me for a ride to Grand Central Station, and I give him the lift to Grand Central Station, and that's the last day that I saw him. The next morning, I get the call from his assistant that something happened to him. And I'm asking what happened to him, and they just said he hurt himself, but they didn't say, that he was dead. They just was like he hurt himself. The assistant called this young lady, I forget her name, at the office. And when the young lady answered the phone, we're on the three-way. And she's crying and she's screaming on the phone. And she just kept saying, Chris hurt himself, Chris hurt himself. And the assistant is asking her, what exactly did he do to himself? And she said she don't know. He just hurt himself. And then we asked if he was dead, and then she said she don't know. So when we got to Chris's home, we couldn't go in the house. And it wasn't until you saw the coroner van come. And when you saw the van, and then they reversed the van into the driveway to get us close to the door of the house. Because it was a downstairs door, and then there was the regular door to go up the stairs and you go in the house from the front. But whatever happened to him, it happened downstairs, because that's where his body was. And they went inside, and they brought them black bags with them, them body bags, and that's when it got real. That's when it changed. Everything changed when you saw the bags. And we knew when they came out the basement with the bags, and his body was in the bags. That's when you knew Chris was never coming back. So, the crying started, and a lot of arguing started. a lot of threats started. And my life was going in a whole nother direction after that. And I didn't like it, because I was confused about how to move. And I was lost for a minute, because I never really had to manage my career without a manager.
This is the Busta Rhymes that none of us have ever seen before. Busta Rhymes says it himself. This is a Busta Rhymes that nobody's ever seen before. You will walk away from this conversation understanding not only what it takes to reach the very peak of your powers, but to stay there for 33 years. To have the insane consistency, discipline, dedication, and in his words, addiction to something that will take you to the very top. But then also you'll see the forces in life that take you from that peak to the deepest depths of darkness. And once you're in that darkness, how do you rise from it? How did Busta take himself from the darkest moment of his life that he's really not talked about ever before, back to the peak of his powers? This is a human story. It's one of the most inspiring stories we've ever had on this show. And it's a side of a guy that we've known for many, many decades that I have never seen before. Thank you to Busta for this conversation. And if you like this conversation, if you like what we do here on the Diary of a CEO, before we get started, I've got a 10-second favor to ask you. About 62% of you roughly that listen to this podcast frequently haven't yet hit the subscribe button. So if you can hit that subscribe button, it is the reason why we're able to get guests like Busta Rhymes to come here and have these conversations with me. I feel like we're a team here. Give a little, take a little. So if you could hit that subscribe button, that would be absolutely amazing. It's the only favor that I'll ever ask from you. And I promise you in return that I'll do everything to give you more guests like this one and guests that you love. Enjoy this episode. Buster, sometimes I think that with maturity and with age, we're able to look back at our earliest years and connect dots that only our maturity and only our own growth and development allow us to connect. And those dots sometimes indicate to us why and how we became the person we are today. And that's really what I'm so compelled to understand with you is, what is that early context that you look back on now when you go, the reason I am the man I am today sat here is because of this early context and these things and these people. What is that?
Honestly, I have to say it starts with my mother and my father. My mother and my father was strict. You know what I'm saying? And they also made sure that I didn't need for nothing. I was able to really enjoy what it was to be a child. And, you know, I don't have to sit here and mislead people like I come from some poor struggle and I come from this hood shit. Like, yeah, I was in the hood. I was in Brooklyn, East Flatbush, Brooklyn, New York. And I was in the hood with enough of the goons and the hooligans, but the difference about our era and the way you mostly hear artists try to portray it now is even the guys that was the goons and the gangsters and the troublemakers in the street, they had respect and they had integrity and they understood what it was to have proper manners. Like, if my mother, as serious as she was, saw any of the other kids in the street, it was like, I'm giving you an example of how it really literally took a village to raise a child. Like, none of the neighbors on the block would see another child that they watched grow from a little boy into becoming a teenager or something and see that kid misbehaving and not reprimand them in the street, even if they're not his parent. So my neighbors had permission to bust my ass if I was misbehaving. And then they would tell my mother. And if my mother felt like I misrepresented her to make another neighbor have to discipline me, that was gonna get me another ass beating. So you ended up getting 2 ass beatings for every one trouble that you caused. You know what I'm saying? And that shit was important because I think that as a community, that shit is something it doesn't exist anymore. You can't tell nobody else kid nothing. Kids ain't trying to listen to you tell them nothing. They'll lift up something and fling it after you or go upside your head and disrespect you because there's just a totally different value in the way things are done in the community. So it starts with my parents and the way I was raised in the house to have respect for my parents, have respect for my other elders, even if you wasn't my parent, and also even if you was dudes that was in the street, you still an elder, we had to respect you as an elder. In return, that same respect that came from the house, and you, whenever you went abroad and you conducted yourself in that manner, it would garnish the same respect in return. So even if it was a dude in the street on some street shit, the respect that you showed to that elder still warranted a certain respect from them. They wouldn't disrespect the respect that you was raised in your house to have for your family and for them. So that respect was upheld, and it was that integrity was defended. And that was a real solid foundation that all of the other floors was built on, which eventually evolved into becoming a skyscraper for me. So I'm gonna start there with the kids. Then I'm gonna go to the neighborhood, because again, when my parents was around, I got the same disciplining from the neighbors, the hardworking middle-class families, the less fortunate families that was still in the neighborhood. We all was on the same accord about discipline and respect.
Was it easy to see when you look back how you could have gone another way in that context?
Absolutely, because all of those things were still there. The drug dealing was still there. The shootings were still happening. The robberies were still happening. All of that was there, right? But the beautiful thing was there was a serious presence of balance that was just as impressionable as all of the things that was the negative presence that was strong and that did get a stronghold on a lot of the youth in the community at the time too.
How come you didn't go the other way?
I did. I just was fortunate enough to have something like hip hop that was able to be an alternative that saved my life, changed my life. And I had some incredible people that was around me to support me when I found this interest and I identified with my gift as an artist, to be able to entertain people, perform, articulate my thoughts through song and rhyme form. And I had an incredible support system with my moms. I had an incredible support system with just the other friends and family that I grew up with that was in the community. And then, last but not least, the determination that I had to want to be able to not disappoint the people that I knew that really was proud of what I was doing, good, bad, or indifferent.
Who are they?
It was all of them.
All of them.
Right? So, for example, I pissed my moms off when I decided I wanted to start selling weed and selling crack, right? And the guys that was in the street that I was doing it with, when they realized, even though I was doing it and it was cool for us to do it, they didn't really want us to do it. When they started to see that we had potential to do other things that was gonna keep us safe and keep us away from the street. A lot of the time they didn't have a better opportunity to offer us. So they made sure that they was as present as they could be to guide us through the shit that they didn't even want us to do in the first place, which was the stupidness we was carrying on with in the street. So they did everything they could to minimize the bullshit that we would get into, so we don't get killed, so we don't go to jail, so, none of that shit would happen. But once they realized they didn't have a better opportunity for us, that is what they felt was the best that they could do. If we're gonna do the bullshit, we gotta be there to protect them and make sure that they straight, and we guide them so that they could do it the best way with the least amount of bullshit.
As a younger
kid, right? When they started to see that this rapping thing and this hip hop shit and breakdancing and graffiti and DJing and all of that shit was something that we started to generate interest for, that's when they started to encourage us to do that more.
Instead of crack and...
Instead of selling the drugs, instead of selling weed, instead of stealing this and taking that. And so they were so happy to see we found another way. They wanted us to do that. So the more we did that, if we started to show them any indication as we was making progress that we wasn't continuing to be productive, now it felt like you was pissing off two sets of parents. I'm already pissing off my parents because I'm with them in the street. Now they see me doing this music shit. They like that shit. They proud of me. So if I'm not doing well in that, now I'm disappointing them too.
What was the consequence of your parents separating at 11 years old? Because I think about me being 11 years old. I remember a conversation, my mum's Nigerian, I was born in Botswana, my dad's English.
Right.
I remember around that age, about 10 years old, my parents calling me in and basically telling me they didn't love each other anymore. And it was like the world had broken in half.
Yeah.
It's like you can't comprehend the concept of these two people being separate. It's like
Absolutely.
being torn into two pieces.
Yeah.
How was it for you at 11 years old when you find that out?
It was disastrous for me because, like you said, you can't really ever wrap your head around that. As a child, you don't know how to conceptualize that. Like, obviously there was things that I was able to do and there was enjoyment I was able to have when I spent time with my father that I couldn't get when I was with my mother. There was things that I was always able to get as far as nurturing and being cared for and being babied from my mother that I couldn't get from my father. And obviously divine order is mother and father to make baby, right? So I definitely didn't want to lose neither one of them.
Did you change?
I definitely changed because I wasn't I couldn't figure out how to find my the behaved kid that I was, even though I was still getting into shit. The bullshit really started once my mother and my father got a divorce. The misbehaving really started picking up. The disrespect started to pick up and intensify. The anger was just a lot more.
Why?
It overwhelmed me more because I wasn't happy with my situation. And then I wasn't happy with the way that I was directly impacted by their beef. So like, you know, there would be times when if my mother and my father wasn't getting along, fresh discrepancy between the two of them, say like the day of my father supposed to pick up me and my brother, because I only got one younger brother, and say he supposed to come and pick us up on this day and particularly for his visitation weekend. If an argument started with the two of them that morning, you know, my father would get to the house and then my mother wouldn't even let us go. And we would look and see him in the front of the house from the window. And my mom's would just be on some bullshit.
How did you feel looking at him from the window?
It was fucking crazy.
You wanted to go, I'm guessing.
Of course. You know what I'm saying? Because there was things and there was other family that obviously was on my father's side, cousins and kids from the neighborhoods of the cousins part of Brooklyn or Queens and different areas of New York that we would go, that we had friends and with the family and with the neighborhood friends that we met through our other family and other cousins and things of that nature in the different neighborhoods. We wouldn't get to see these people until dad came to get us because moms wasn't cool really with that side of the family like that. My father's side of the family wasn't really rocking with my mother's side of the family like that. So if that rotation didn't happen in the visits, we didn't get to enjoy that. We missed our dad. We was only getting the opportunity to see him, you know, once a week, once every 2 weeks, or sometimes once a month if they beefing with each other.
Did your relationship with your father at that point kind of become a bit strained because of that beef? Did you start to see him less and less and less?
Yeah, I think my conflict with my father, it started to happen more and more because, you know, obviously the lack of a parent's presence has an effect in different ways, right? And as a son, I don't know what it is, but I just think instinctually, boys cling on to their moms more. I don't know if that's always the case, but in most cases, that's usually what it is. I think my father's personality was a little conflicting for me with the way my personality was, and the contrast of my father's personality as opposed to my mother's personality, it drew conflict for me too, because my father, he wasn't as interested in the shit that I wanted to do, or the shit that I was interested in as a child. Like, he always was more serious about whatever he felt was best for my future was all that mattered. It wasn't about what I thought. It was about what he thought. So I always started to feel like, and having the comparison and seeing the contrast between that and how supportive my mother was for the shit that I wanted to do. Like, you know, first time I got some pussy, I could come tell my mother. I could sit down and tell my mother about how that felt. You know what I'm saying? I could sit and tell my moms about, you know, my first wet dream or some shit. I could talk to my moms about the music that I'm making in the studio with my crew, leaders of the new school at the time, and I could come home and I could play that shit in the house, or I could turn up the shit. Just as long as I could do, just as long as I did what I was supposed to in the house, my mother was with all the other shit, as long as it was productive and it kept me away from the trouble in the street. That was relieving for her. My father, you tried to talk to him at the time about some rap shit. He's like, I don't want to hear that shit. That shit is a bunch of bullshit. And you wasting your time with that shit. That's how I used to talk. You know what I'm saying? Now, at that time, I didn't respect it. And at that time, I felt a way, I felt real fucked up about that, because it was just like, I could be doing some real bullshit. Like, I'm actually still 1 foot in, because I haven't succeeded at this. This shit don't make me no money. I do this shit because I love it. Like, I just love it. So when I'm able to do shit that I love with my friends and with my people that I'm entertained by doing it with them, it's because I have this thing with a crew that there's a collective enjoyment that we're getting from doing this music shit.
Are you still trying to prove him wrong to some degree? Did you find yourself trying to prove him wrong then?
Nah, because I got my opportunity to do it.
But before that moment,
at that time,
yeah,
absolutely, I was trying to prove him wrong. I was so determined to prove him wrong that it forced me to excel. Because the more that he wanted me to do what he wanted me to do,
which was,
my father was a licensed electrical contractor.
Okay.
So he used to force me to come to work. His way of keeping me off the street was bringing me to work with him, because he had his own company as a licensed electrical contractor.
How did you feel about that?
I was disgusted with that shit, because we working in these nasty fucking buildings with rats and roaches running around and shit. And it took childhood time for me, because I wasn't able to be outside and play. That's really what I wanted to do.
And how old were you then? 12?
It started a little younger than that, but right around 12 is when it got serious. I would say like around 10 years old was when it started. 12 is when it got serious, because my mother used to send us to different countries every summer with my father, just so we could be able to explore what it was